You are now tuned into Then Radio. If you enjoy our videos, we ask that you consider joining our Patreon to support our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you never miss a new video. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and as always, thank you for watching.
In a moment, you'll hear James Stewart as the Sick Shooter. Just one of many fine programs brought to you each week on NBC. Tomorrow night, there's top comedy entertainment with the Bob Hope Show, the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show, and Can You Top This with Senator Ford. Bob Hope delivers rapid-fire comedy routines, while Phil Harris and Alice Faye bring both mirth and music. A great Friday night lineup of comedy programs, all of them heard only on NBC. James Stewart as the Sick Shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl, its handle unmarked. People call them both the Sick Shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the Sick Shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still-remembered legends.
Keep your shirt on. Bank don't open till 9 a.m. You got 5 minutes to wait.
It's me, Mac Hawkins. I got some news for you, Ollie.
News?
About Wyatt King.
Oh. Yeah, what's happened, Mac?
They got him.
No.
Yeah. Sheriff Hemphill's bringing him into town now. The posse come by my ranch about a half hour ago. I took right off so as I could spread the word.
Well, I just can't believe it.
That's right, they got him.
Spud Hemphill capturing a Wyoming kid?
Yeah.
Oh, not that Spud ain't been a good sheriff, but, nobody's ever been able to lay a hand on Wyatt King before.
Well, the sheriff didn't exactly capture him, Ollie.
Well, I thought you said
Well, the sheriff's bringing him in, and that's true enough, but the way I understand it, the posse just sort of stumbled onto the kid.
What?
Yeah, that's what they say. He was laying in a grove of sycamores over by Tenderfoot Creek.
Dead, huh?
No, but he'd been shot up some, a bullet in his belly. Must have been hit at close range. He was still out cold when they went past my place.
Well, Spud say who shot him and left him laying there?
Well, they just don't seem to know, Ollie.
Well, he was in mighty good health when he rode out of here yesterday, carting off $2,500 from my bank vault here.
And your money was still on him. No need for you to worry about it.
Good morning, Mr. Owen. I'm sorry I'm late. Matilda had one of her dizzy spells this morning, and I had to wait until Doc McIntyre got there.
Jonas, you hear about Wyatt King?
Wyatt King?
The fella who held me up yesterday.
Oh, why, I thought they called him something else, some kind of kid.
That's right. The Wyoming kid.
Yeah.
Well, his real name is Wyatt King.
Oh.
Don't you ever read them reward notices down to the post office?
Well, I just don't remember names very good, I guess.
Oh.
What about Mr. King?
Well, he's been captured.
You don't say.
Yes, the sheriff found him down at Tenderfoot Creek. He was all shot up.
My.
And the darndest thing is, nobody knows who shot him.
Well, what's so peculiar about that?
Well, in the first place, the fellow who done it, he'd stand to collect a mighty nice reward. All them hold-ups King's pulled, well, there must be at least $5,000 offered for him, dead or alive.
My, that sure is a lot of money. Well, I better get over to my desk and start working on the account.
Ollie, that ain't the only strange thing about this here business.
What are you driving?
Well, I told you the kid'd been shot at close range. That means somebody met up with him, face to face. He wasn't dry gulched or nothing like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And it would take a mighty big man to stand up to Wyatt King and a mighty fast man to outdraw him.
Yeah. He was supposed to be lightning gunfighter.
There's about 10 graves that'll testify to that.
Sure ain't nobody around here. Well, leastways, I can't think of anybody. Can you, man?
No, can't. Not a single solitary soul. I've been racking my brain ever since I heard what had happened.
Morning, gents.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
You the banker?
That's right, Mr.
Name's Ponset, Britt Ponset.
Well, I'm pleased to meet you, Mr. Ponset. I'm Oliver Rowan.
Howdy. I got a little check here. I was wondering if you...
Did you say Britt Ponset?
That's right.
Well, I'll be doggone.
What's the matter, man?
Why, he's a six-shooter, Ollie.
A six-shooter?
Ain't that right, Mr. Ponset?
Well, sometimes I guess folks call me...
There. What did I tell you? Well, sir, I guess we don't have to do no more wondering about who shot up Wyatt King.
What?
Well, sir, we're all mighty grateful, Mr. Ponset.
Hold on.
If we'd have known you was in these parts, we wouldn't have had no doubts in the first place. No, sir.
I'm afraid I don't follow you.
You're the fellow who shot it out with the king last night, ain't you? Well, it must have been you. It couldn't have been nobody else.
Why, of course it was him, Ollie. There ain't no doubt about it. I said it would take a fast man to outdraw the kid. Well, the six-shooter's just about the fastest man west of the Mississippi from the way I hear it.
Well, that's mighty flattering, but as far as outdrawing Wyatt King, well, I wouldn't know about that, seeing as how we never met up.
Never met up?
No.
Oh, you mean you didn't recognize him last night?
Last night?
Well, whenever it was you shot him.
Now, let's get this straight, gents. I didn't shoot Wyatt King last night or any other time. I've never laid eyes on him.
Well, if it wasn't you, then who did do it?
I sure wouldn't know. I rode down the trail from Fort Drexel. I didn't see any sign of Wyatt King or anybody else.
Tenderfoot Creek's just off that trail.
Is that so?
Well, if Mr. Ponset says he didn't do it, I guess he didn't.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Sure. Why didn't I think of it before?
Yeah, think of what?
Everybody knows that the six-shooter don't like to take credit for what he does. He's the sort of man who hides his lamp under a bushel. Well, you ain't going to get away with it here in Copper Springs, Mr. Ponset.
No,
you're absolutely right, man.
Yeah.
All right, shooting an outlaw like Wyatt King ain't nothing to be ashamed of.
Well,
Mr. Ponset, you ought to be proud of yourself.
Well, maybe I would if I'd done it.
Hey,
the fact
there's
is,
the posse now. Just wait till I tell Sheriff Hayfield about this.
Here now.
Wait a minute, Mac. Wait a minute. I'm coming with you.
Listen to me, will you?
You mind the bank?
Yes, sir, Mr. Rowan.
Now, Mr. Rowan, hey, why do you... well, I'll be darned. Well, I never saw anything like it. For the next half hour, folks came up to me from all directions, all saying I'd shot Wyatt King, giving me their congratulations. I told them I hadn't had anything to do with it, but they just wouldn't be convinced. And I didn't see how I could straighten them out on it. It did make me feel kind of funny, though, all this hullabaloo over a misunderstanding. And then when the mayor said something about letting the kids out of school for a day in my honor, well, I just had to find some way of putting a stop to it, so I headed over to the jail, introduced myself to Sheriff Hampton.
Sir, it's a privilege to meet you, Mr. Ponset. A real privilege.
Yeah, it's a privilege, yes.
Oh, not that I wouldn't have caught up with King myself sooner or later, but you kind of speeded up the operation.
Yes. Now, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, Sheriff.
Oh, now, don't you worry about the reward. I'll see that you get it.
No,
yes, sir.
I'm not interested in any reward.
Well, yeah, everybody says you're the generous type. I heard that.
Well, I'm not that generous, Sheriff. Now, I reckon I'd take the reward if I was entitled to it.
Oh, now, Mr. Ponset.
Sheriff, you've got to listen to me now. I didn't shoot Wyatt King.
Well, I heard you've been trying to ease out of taking the credit.
I'm not trying to do anything except tell you the truth. Now, you ask King when he comes to. You'll find out.
Oh, he came to a little while ago, Mr. Ponset. Right after Doc McIntyre got through patching him up. He's practically as good as new now.
Well, go on. Ask him if I had anything to do with shooting him.
Well, why should I ask him again?
Again?
Well, sure. As soon as he was able to talk, I questioned him.
Well?
He says you made a lucky draw, Mr. Ponset. Of course, that's just an alibi.
Now, wait a minute here. Now, do you mean to say that Wyatt King claims I shot him?
Huh? Well, you're the six-shooter, ain't you? Well, that's who he says done it.
Well, I just couldn't believe my ears. I never laid eyes on this Wyoming kid my whole life. Oh, I'd heard plenty about him, of course. All his escapades. He had quite a reputation. Well, Sheriff Hemphill wasn't even easier to convince than the rest of the folks had been, so finally I asked him if he'd mind letting me talk to King. The fellow who'd shot him must have resembled me in some way. At least that's what I figured. And I was certain that once we met head on, the King would see that he'd been wrong.
Well, Wyatt?
Huh?
This the man who shot you?
Why do you have to keep going over that, Sheriff? I told you who'd done it.
Yeah, but Mr. Ponset here kind of disagrees with you.
I sure do.
Oh?
Now, let's just get this thing straightened out once and for all, and then we won't have any...
What's the matter with you, Britt? You was ready enough to pull the trigger last night. Why are you trying to lie out of it now?
To pull... Why, you know we've never run into each other before, last night or any other time.
I got a bandage on my belly that says different.
Now, take a good look at me, Wyatt. Now, maybe in the dark you sort of thought that the fellow, well, maybe there was a likeness.
You got a twin brother.
Of course I've got no twin brother.
If you ain't got a twin brother, then it was you that shot me. And it wasn't very dark either. Don't you remember the way we were standing there in the moonlight and the way you went for your gun? The same gun you're wearing right now. I sure ain't likely to forget it.
Well, now, look here, Sheriff. Now, you listen to me. Now, I don't know what's the matter with this King. You must have gone loco or something, but I give you my word.
Mr. Ponset, we all know how you feel about accepting honors and having folks look up to you. But this is one time you just ain't going to be able to get away with it. As a matter of fact, I believe there's some kind of a doings planned over at the town hall later on this afternoon. After the parade, that is.
The parade? Oh, now, you just hold on here. Now, before everybody starts tearing around in circles, I'd like to talk to Wyatt alone, if you don't mind.
What for?
Well, just give me a couple of minutes with him, Sheriff.
All right, but I sure don't see what you hope to gain by it. I'll have to lock you in with him, though. Can't take no chances with a man like King. Give a holler when you want out.
All right, King. I want the truth.
Well, I ain't the one who's loco, Ponset. You are. That's a pretty big reward for me.
There's a reward for the fellow who captured you.
Well, as long as I keep saying you're the fella you can collect, I'm doing you a favor.
Well, maybe I don't happen to want any favor from you.
Well, don't look like you got much choice in the matter, does it? Of course, just between the two of us. Now seeing you right close like that, it might have been somebody else that shot me.
You know doggone well it was.
Well, even if it was, even if I was mistaken about it, I sure wouldn't admit it.
I don't see why not.
Oh, now, Mr. Ponset, you don't think I want folks to know I was outdrawed by a little fellow with gray hair and a pot belly?
Oh, how's that?
A man who nobody's heard of, a grocery clerk or a sod buster. That's what he looked like to me. Why, he even had a ready-made suit on, a coat and pants cut out of the same cloth. Stiff collar. And a necktie. I never supposed a man like him would know how to use a gun. Otherwise, I'd been more careful.
Well, at least we finally got down to the truth, huh? Now, all you got to do is tell the sheriff and we'll...
I'm not telling anybody else, Ponset. And I got an idea your telling them won't make much difference.
What?
Not as long as I keep saying it was you that shot me. And, of course, that's what I'm going to say. I ain't got no choice.
Well, you haven't got any reason to lie about it.
Well, now, look, it's one thing to be outshot by Britt Ponset. That ain't so hard to swallow. But the idea of being outdrawed by a nobody... Well, I wouldn't be able to face my friends again after I break out of jail. They'd all have a laugh on me. Yes, sir. It sure was a lucky break when the sheriff come in and said you was in town. Yeah. Asked if you was the one that shot me.
You're not going to get away with this, King.
Well, I'm sorry if it upset you, Ponset, but after all, I got my reputation to consider.
Your reputation? Why, I never heard of such a thing.
Sheriff, get me out of here.
We'll return to James Stewart as the 6-shooter in just a moment. Each year, forest fires take a tragic toll, destroying the natural resources that are vital to our nation's strength. Remember, one moment of carelessness can destroy national beauty and wealth that can never be replaced. Forest fires have been called America's most shameful waste because they can be prevented. Don't fail to do your part in preventing them. Don't be guilty of starting one. Now, Act Two of The Sick Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponset.
Well, I knew that there wasn't any point in hanging around the jail trying to make Sheriff Hemphill believe what Wyatt King had told me. King was right. As long as he kept insisting that I shot him, I wasn't going to be able to convince anybody of the truth, unless the man who really did shoot him. I was walking down the main street, passing the bank, when I remembered what King had said. A gray-haired fellow with a pot belly, wearing a ready-made suit and a stiff collar and tie. I'd seen somebody who looked like that. I couldn't think where. Where was it? And then I just happened to glance into the bank.
Yes, sir. What can I do? Oh, what? You're Mr. Ponset, ain't you?
That's right.
My, you sure stirred up a lot of talk, Mr. Ponset. The whole town.
Yeah, I know.
Mr. Rowan just stepped out for a couple of minutes, but if there's anything I can do...
You're the teller, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
Been with the bank for 26 years now.
You don't say.
The name's Jonas Pilgrim, Mr. Ponset.
Well, pleased to meet you, Mr. Pilgrim.
Of course, if you're in a hurry for something, maybe I could find Mr. Rowan.
No. As a matter of fact, it was you I wanted to talk to.
Me?
Yes. You see, I've just come from a session with Wyatt King over at the jail.
Oh?
And, he told me about the shooting last night.
Uh-huh. Well, that's real interesting, Mr. Ponset. Well, I've got some statements to get out now, so if you don't mind,
And King told me about the man who did it.
Oh, see.
Mm-hmm. It's a funny thing, Mr. Pilgrim. The description he gave me sure fits you right down to that tie you're wearing. And to come to think of it, you're just about the only person in town that does fit.
I don't know what you mean, sir.
Well, you don't, huh? You don't. Well, it was nice talking to you.
Mr. Ponset.
Yeah?
You won't mention this to anybody else.
Well, I don't see what difference it makes as long as it wasn't you he was talking about.
Well, it might be kind of embarrassing.
Just what do you mean?
Well, all right, I'll admit it to you, Mr. Ponset. But you got to promise me you won't tell anybody else. You got to give me your word.
You shot him, huh?
I didn't intend to. I didn't even know who he was. You see, I wasn't here when he held up the bank.
Oh?
I was on my way back to town from Widow Tolliver's ranch. I'd rid out to tell her that her account was overdrawn again.
Uh-huh.
And this fella, he come at me out of the dark. Told me he wanted my horse. I didn't even stop to think. I just grabbed my gun and let fire. I never should have done it, Mr. Ponset. I don't know what got into me.
You're sorry you shot a man like Wyatt King?
Oh, no, not exactly, but it's kind of hard to explain. The fact is, I'm married, Mr. Ponset. And Matilda, that's my wife, Matilda's kind of particular about some things. She's real particular about me. That's why I gotta wear this doggone collar. Just cuts my neck so I can hardly stand it sometimes.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Shame. I sure feel sorry for you, Jonas, but I don't see what that's got any connection with...
Well, now, Mr. Ponset, if don't you see, if Matilda knew, if I so much as carried a gun, well, she'd just have a conniption fit. And if she was to find out that I used to be, well, kind of experienced at gunplay, why, she'd just raise the roof. I don't think that she'd ever let me get out of her sight after that. You see, I never told her that when I was younger I used to be sort of quick on the trigger.
I'll be doggone. Well, I take it your talents haven't exactly deserted you, huh?
Well, sir, that was the doggonest thing. I wouldn't even had that dang revolver with me, except that Widow Tolliver had given me some money to deposit, and she was real worried about my getting it into town. All right, you see. It was old Smith Tolliver's gun. She insisted on loaning it to me.
I see.
When this Wyatt King jumped up at me, well, I guess some of my old instincts must have come through. Leastways, the next thing I knew, he was laying there in the dirt, not moving.
Yeah, I'll be darned.
Now, mind you, I wasn't a gunfighter in my younger days. But I did kind of manage to shoot my way out of a few scrapes. I guess I don't look much like it now, do I?
Well, a man's liable to do a certain amount of aging, I expect.
Sometimes I think I've done more than my share. Well, anyway, I suppose you can see now why I don't want folks to know what happened last night about me and Wyatt King.
Yeah, I guess you've got a point, Jonas. But I can't go on taking the credit for what you did.
Well, Mr. Ponset, you give me your word on it.
No, I didn't do any such thing.
Well, you sure did. Why, I wouldn't have been telling all this if I
didn't.
What in tarnation? Mr. Hawkins, what's all the rumpus about?
Wyatt King here just broke out of jail.
He broke out of jail?
Some darn fool forgot to lock his cell. Sheriff thinks he's heading toward Badwater Falls. We're getting a posse together.
For goodness sake.
Well, we won't be needing you, Jonas.
Oh, no. Of course not. No.
But the sheriff was real anxious to have you come along, Mr. Ponset.
Is that so? Well, I'm sorry. I won't be able to oblige.
But you've already captured Wyatt once.
Well, let's just say that once was enough. As a matter of fact, I'm figuring on leaving town. Which way is Badwater Falls?
South. Due south.
I'm heading north. So long. Well, inside of 5 minutes, the whole town of Copper Springs had ridden off in a southerly direction. The male population, that is. I guess Jonas and I were about the only two men that hadn't joined up with the sheriff's posse. In a way, I was kind of relieved that King had broken out of jail. At least I'd be able to leave town without any more of this foolishness about me capturing him. Oh, not that I ever wanted a fellow like King to go free, you understand, but I figured the posse would probably catch up to him pretty soon. He couldn't have had much of a head start. So I headed over to the livery stable to get Scar. I'd already paid for his keep in advance, but the man who ran the stable had gone off with the others, and I didn't feel like sticking around for the refund. Easy, boy. Easy, Scar. I looked around for his saddle. It was lying on the floor over by a pile of hay. And just as I picked it up, I noticed something funny about the hay. It was starting to move.
Just keep holding on to that saddle, Ponset, and don't reach for your gun.
Wyatt.
If you make a move, I'll ram this pitchfork right through you.
Oh, you're crazy, Wyatt. You'll never get out of town.
There ain't nobody left in town to stop me, except you.
You got a wound in your belly. That'll stop you.
Don't worry about me, Ponset. I'll make out. Now I'm taking your gun and your horse.
There are plenty other horses here.
I'm taking yours.
Wyatt.
Shut up, or you'll get a taste of these problems.
Well, there wasn't any point in my arguing about it, not with a pitchfork digging into my chest. So I waited until he reached out a hand for my gun, and then I gave that saddle a little toss. Caught him right in the neck. He went over backwards. I started to go for my holster, but Wyatt stuck out the handle of that pitchfork, and the next thing I knew, I was down on the floor beside him. He banged his fist into my face, and I felt his hands go for my throat. I managed to get up on a knee and flipped him over. I hoisted myself onto my knee, but he let loose with a kick, and I went flat again. I got a glimpse of his boot coming into my face, and I just got out of the way in time. And then he missed me and almost lost his balance, and I had time to get on my feet again. Came charging in with both fists again, and one of them whipped past my ear, and the other one smashed into my shoulder, and that left him wide open. couldn't leave him lying there on the floor unconscious. I figured it wouldn't be very long before he came to, so I picked him up and carted him across the street to where he belonged. The jail was completely deserted, and there wasn't a sign of anybody, but the door to Wyatt's cell was unlocked, so I laid him on the cot inside and pulled the blanket up over him. I didn't want him to catch cold or anything like that. And I found the key in the front office, and I locked him in. Hey, Jonas! Hold up a minute, Jonas.
Mr. Ponset, what? I thought you'd left town.
I'm leaving right away, Jonas, right away. That is, if you'll do me a little favor.
A favor?
Yeah, you're through for the day with the bank, aren't you?
Oh, yes. We close at 4 o'clock sharp. I'm on my way home now.
Uh-huh. Well, I was wondering if you'd mind putting off your supper a little bit.
Well, Matilda...
Until the posse comes back, that is.
What for, Mr. Ponset?
Well, you see, I was over at the jail just a minute ago, and there's nobody over there watching things while the sheriff's out of town.
Well, I don't see what difference it makes. Wyatt King was the only prisoner, and he's escaped.
Yeah. But even so, now suppose somebody were to break in. They could do a lot of damage, The sheriff's probably got some important papers in the file.
No, Mr. Ponset.
No, but you never know, Jonas. You never know about things like that.
Well, I guess the sheriff should have locked up when he left, but I don't see what...
Well, then you won't mind holding down the fort while he's gone.
Well, Well, as long as there aren't any prisoners to look after.
I just wouldn't feel right about running off if there wasn't somebody to mind the jail.
Well, Mr. Ponset, it sure seems to me like you're worrying unnecessarily, but... Well, I guess I can do that much for you.
Thanks, Jonas. I really appreciate it. All you have to do is sit in the front office until somebody shows up.
All right, Mr. Ponset. I'll get right over there.
So long, Jonas. Good luck to you.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Ponset.
Yeah?
I hope you aren't put out about my letting folks think it was you who shot Wyatt King last night.
Oh, I guess I'll get over it.
After all, sometimes it is best if a man takes a responsibility for something, even if he hasn't done it himself.
What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess that is, yeah. Well, I'll be seeing you. I tell you what, I got out of Copper Springs fast as I could. I just wasn't sure how things were going to work out. But then a couple of weeks later, a copy of the Copper Springs Press caught up with me. And there was Jonas Pilgrim's picture all over the front page. Yes, sir. Great big article telling how the sheriff and his posse had come back to town without finding a trace of Wyatt. And there he was, right in the jail. And there was Jonas Pilgrim snoozing in the front office, calm as a cucumber. Modest Pilgrim, that's what the paper called Jonas. He said he'd tried to deny having anything to do with Wyatt's capture, but the folks in Copper Springs, they just hadn't believed him. Well, it was plain as day that he'd taken Wyatt single-handed. Well, like Jonas said, sometimes it's best for a man to take the responsibility of a thing, even if he hasn't done it.
The Six-Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burt and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture, The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Bill Johnstone, Herb Vigran, Junius Matthews, Barney Phillips, and Joel Cranston. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. Oh, by the way, you'll be interested in knowing that the Six-Shooter has been chosen for broadcast to our men overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Services. This is John Wall speaking. MacDonald Carey stars in Jason and the Golden Fleece tonight on the NBC Radio Network. In a moment, you'll hear James Stewart as the six-shooter, just one of many fine programs brought to you each week on NBC. Tomorrow night, there's top comedy entertainment with the Bob Hope Show, the Phil Harris-Alice Faye Show, and Can You Top This with Senator Ford. Bob Hope delivers rapid-fire comedy routines, while Phil Harris and Alice Faye bring both mirth and music. It's a great Friday night lineup of comedy programs, all of them heard only on NBC. James Stewart as the six-shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl. Its handle unmarked. People call them both the six-shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the six-shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still-remembered legends.
It was a little over 4 years since last time I worked for the Wilcox outfit, but when George Wilcox wrote me about his pa's death and said he needed somebody to handle the cattle drive east to Abilene, well, there weren't exactly any other demands on my services, so I headed up to Adobe Junction and rode through the town to the Wilcox Ranch a couple miles beyond. It was getting on toward evening when I pulled into the yard. Whoa, boy, whoa, Scar. Whoa. Only about 8 or 10 steers in the main corral over back of the house. Well, maybe George hadn't finished the roundup yet, or maybe he was going to start the drive from out on the range. Whatever it was, he'd have to get started pretty soon or the weather would be against us.
Yes?
Good evening, ma'am. Is George Wilcox in?
Why, Mr. Ponset, don't you remember me?
What?
I'm Viola Wilcox, George's sister.
Viola No, you... Why, I just can't believe it.
Well, I guess I have changed since you last saw me.
Change? Why, gee, well, you've practically grown up overnight, Viola.
There are some folks around here who wouldn't agree with you, Mr. Ponset.
Oh?
Who is it, Vi?
It's Mr. Ponset, George.
Britt? Why, Britt, boy, you old rattlesnake. It's about time you turned up here.
How are you, George?
Pretty good, pretty good. Put on another plate, Vi. Britt will be here for supper.
Oh, I wouldn't like to impose. No, I mean, you probably weren't expecting me tonight.
Why, we've been expecting you for the last week. Vi's had the spare room ready since Monday.
Well, if you're sure there's enough food, Viola...
Oh, there'll be plenty, Britt. Matter of fact, I won't be eating supper at home tonight.
Now, Viola, I told you weren't...
I'll call you when everything's ready.
I guess we might as well wait in the parlor, Britt.
Sure. I hope I'm not too late for the drive, George.
Late?
Well, you said you've been expecting me for several days, and I didn't see much stock in the corral.
Oh, the boys are still out on the roundup. They're a little late. I couldn't go out with them this year.
Oh, that's all.
They'll probably show up sometime tomorrow, Friday at the latest. You can start off then.
You won't be going long?
No. I'm going to stick around here.
Uh-huh. I was real sorry to hear about your father, George.
He went easy, Britt. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. You know, I just can't get over how Viola's changed. Why, she's turned out to be a real pretty young lady, hasn't she? I'll bet she's got more beaux than any other girl in the whole county.
She could have, I guess, if she wanted them.
What?
Britt, do you remember Judge Coffin?
Coffin?
He was that outlaw from up around Cloud City. You had something to do with capturing him, as I recollect.
Well, I was sort of in the neighborhood when it happened.
I was just a kid then, but Pa took me over to Cloud City to see Coffin's trial, and hanging afterward. I guess he figured it'd be a good lesson for me.
Uh-huh.
He was right, too. I never forgot it. There's something else I never forgot either. The way Judd Coffin looked. His eyes. His nose. Everything about him. He was born to be a killer. It was writ all over him.
No, I don't know now, George.
Well, I do. And now he's back here again.
Well, what are you talking about? Judd Coffin was hung. You saw it yourself. You just said so, George.
Judd had a brother. A few years younger. I don't remember his name, but I saw him at the trial, too.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, now that you mention it, it seems to me there was another Coffin boy. What about him?
There's a young fella started working for the Mercantile in Adobe Junction, and if he
I'll
ain't...
be right there, Hank. Everything's on the table, George. Just stack the dishes when you finish eating, and I'll do them when I get home.
Now, you hold up a minute,
See
Viola.
you later, Britt. Night.
Come over here, Britt. Over here to the window.
What?
There he is in that buggy. Now, you take a good look.
Well, what's...
Now, don't he look just like Judd?
Well, it's been quite a while, George. I've sort of forgotten Judd Coffin.
Well, I ain't forgot him. I couldn't, not ever. I can still see him when they led him up to them gallows. I can still see his eyes, killer's eyes. And that's his brother out there riding away with my sister, ain't it? Well, ain't it?
Well, maybe he does sort of resemble Judd in a way, but why...
It's more than a resemblance, Britt. I've seen him up close. He's a spitting image.
Well, I don't see what difference it makes, George, unless he's been causing trouble, and even then...
Britt, he's only been around here for a couple of months. Just give him time. He'll cause plenty of trouble.
Maybe so. But now listen, George.
Britt, if a man's got bad blood in him, it's bound to come out sooner or later. It's bound to.
George, it seems to me a fellow ought not to be blamed for what his brother's done.
If he ain't up to something, then why don't he admit who he is?
What do you mean?
Says his name's Hank Wallace. Says he never heard of Judd Coffin.
Well, he ought to know.
He's lying, Britt. You saw the resemblance yourself.
Well, resemblance doesn't always prove anything, you know.
You think I want a man like that going around with my own sister? Why, she's barely 18. She don't know nothing about the world or about people. I'm all she's got now. I can't let her throw her life away on Judd Coffin's brother. I've got to stop her.
Yeah, I guess she is sort of your responsibility. But, George, how about that supper? I'm kind of hungry.
You go ahead, Britt. I ain't got much appetite.
Oh, all right.
Britt?
Yeah?
Maybe this sounds like I'm butting into Vi's business, but I got no choice. Just before he died, Pa warned me, told me what would happen.
No?
Britt, it wasn't 6 weeks after the funeral before she started going around with this fella. I tried to talk sense to her. It don't do no good. Now I got to put my foot down. You understand how I feel, don't you, Britt?
Yes, George. Sure, I understand. Well, I went ahead and had some supper. Cold ham, potato salad with bacon in it, and stewed peaches for dessert. Wasn't anything exceptional, but it was filling enough. And afterwards, since George hadn't eaten anything, I decided maybe I'd go ahead and do the dishes. The dishpan was hanging right beside the sink, so I pumped some water in it. There was only a couple plates and cups to wash. But the handle on that cup just wasn't very substantial, and when it slipped... Oh, doggone it. Well... Looked like it was beyond the gluing stage, so I kind of got the pieces swept together and put them in the garbage bucket. I wasn't exactly trying to hide them or anything like that, but, there were plenty of other cups in the cupboard. Anyhow, I walked back into the parlor and said goodnight to George and went upstairs to bed. I figured he was going to wait up for Viola, and I didn't suppose she'd like the idea, but it wasn't any of my business, so... I was kind of tired anyway. And Viola sure didn't like it either. At least that's how it sounded to me when I woke up about 1 o'clock and heard her and George going at it, hammer and tongs in the downstairs hallway.
What I do or where I go.
I'm your brother, Viola.
So you're not my keeper.
He's no good. If he was, he wouldn't keep you out until all hours of the night.
Staying out was my idea. I didn't want to come home because I knew I'd have to sit here and listen to you.
Well, you're gonna listen. I told you who he was, but you wouldn't believe me. Now maybe you'll believe Britt.
Don't drag him into this, please. Please, George.
Britt? Britt, are you still awake?
George, I asked you not to.
Britt?
Yeah? Yeah, what's trouble?
Would you mind coming down here?
Well...
It'll only take a minute, Britt.
Well, all right, George. All right, give me a chance to put my pants on. I sure didn't like the idea of mixing into a family argument, but I didn't like I was going to get any sleep till George had simmered down, so I pulled on my trousers and I slapped a little cold water in my face. Then I headed out in the hall. I could see Viola standing at the bottom of the stairs, and her face was real white, and her eyes were kind of wide open and determined. George was holding onto her arm.
I was running around with some girl
The way his jaw was set, well, he
was
just as determined as she
Any
was.
of my business.
Well, I do care. It's for your own good, Vi.
Well, good evening, Viola.
Mr. Ponset, I'm awful sorry that you have to get involved in this. And I'm ashamed, too.
Well, you ought to be.
Not for myself. I'm ashamed for you, George.
For me? I'm not running around with no outlaw disgracing my family. Britt, you tell her. Tell her who he really is.
Now, George, I never saw the man before in my whole life.
You noticed the resemblance right off, didn't you? You remarked on it. That man, Judd Coffin's brother, Vi.
Is that what you got Mr. Ponset down here to tell me?
Well, ain't that reason enough?
No, it's not enough.
He's been lying to you, pretending to be somebody else. Don't you care?
He hasn't lied to me, George. I know who he is. I've known it since we first met. He told me he was Hunt Coffin.
He told you?
He was afraid folks around here would hold it against him. That's why he changed his name. And it looks to me like he was right.
You knew who he was and you went right on seeing him?
Can't you understand, George? He's not to blame for something his brother did. They're two different people.
The same blood's in him that was in Judd Coffin. And he'll turn mean and pull the same kind of stunt his brother did, and he'll end up the same way.
Oh, that's crazy. Why, he doesn't even carry a gun. You've seen him often enough. You know he doesn't.
He can get a gun easy enough, and he will. The very first time he figures he needs one.
Mr. Ponset, won't you talk to George? Maybe you can make him see that I'm not a child, that I know my own mind.
Well, it seems to me we've all done enough talking for one night. Anyway, I sure could use a little more sleep. You know, things may look different in the morning. Don't you think so? You know.
Mr. Ponset's right. We'd better go to bed, too.
Things won't be any different tomorrow, Vi, not as far as I'm concerned. I'm telling you here and now, you're not to see young Coffin again, ever.
I'm going to marry him, George.
What?
I wasn't intending to tell you yet. I thought maybe later you'd come around, but I guess you never will. I promised him tonight.
Promised him? You don't know what you're saying, Vi.
George, let's go.
You're just doing this to spite me, ain't you? Well, I'll teach you.
I'm in love with him.
In love with a man like that? I'll slap some sense into you, but it takes me all night.
Hey, George, now get a hold of yourself.
You heard what he said, Rat. She's going to marry him. Or she'll be singing a different tune before...
No, wait a minute. Wait,
you
hold
stay
on.
out of this, George. She's my sister.
I don't care whose sister she is. Now, let go of her. All right, now, George, come on. Let's go upstairs.
It's for her own good, Britt, what I done.
Well, I guess you must have thought it was.
Someday she'll realize it was for her own good. She can't marry him, Britt. She just can't.
Well, treating her the way you did is apt to make her more set on it than ever.
She'll get over that idea fast enough now that she knows I mean business. Someday she'll thank me for slapping her.
Yeah. All right, let's get some sleep, George. Come on.
You are listening to The Six Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman whose name has become legend throughout the West. Now, Act 2 of the story called Blood Relations.
Well, it took me a little while to get back to sleep, but I didn't hear anything more out of George or Viola during the night, so that was something. When I finally woke up again, I just didn't feel like I'd had any rest at all. And it was late, too, nearly 6 o'clock. I got dressed and I went downstairs. Viola was fixing breakfast. Her eyes were sort of red, and there was a little splotch on her cheek where George had slapped her. But she didn't say anything about it, and I sure didn't see any point in opening up the subject. So a couple of minutes later, George came in from doing his chores, and we all sat down at the table. He didn't eat much, just some coffee, and as soon as he was finished, he said he was riding out to the high grass to see if the roundup was on its way down. I offered to go along with him, and so we got on our horses and started off.
You see, Britt, what'd I tell you? She's all right now. She got that nonsense about young Coffin out of her head.
Oh, maybe so.
Yeah, she didn't mention him again, did she?
Oh.
I reckon if she were still thinking about him serious, she'd have said so.
Yeah,
She's a Wilcox, Britt. We don't go around making fools of ourselves. Not for long, anyway.
We kept on riding for a couple of hours until we got to the high ground. But we didn't see any signs of the roundup, so finally we turned around and headed back to the ranch house.
I don't know what's taking them so long. They should have been down a couple of days ago.
Oh?
If they don't show up by morning, we'll have to start looking for them.
Oh, whatever you say, George.
Here we are. Whoa, Frenchie. Whoa, boy. Whoa. Hey, you know something, Britt? I've got kind of an appetite.
Oh, I don't doubt it, the way you've been eating lately. Easy, Scar. Easy.
Well, I'll sure make up for it this noon. I wonder what she's fixed for us. Vi? We're back, Vi. Must be out in the kitchen. That's funny. Vi?
Oh, just a minute, George.
Oh, she's upstairs. That's why she didn't hear me. How about some food, Vi?
I didn't know you'd be here. You didn't say anything when you left.
I'm usually here for dinner, ain't I?
Yeah. Well, it'll take a couple of minutes to get something ready. I just got back from town.
You what?
Well, I guess I'll go wash up.
What were you doing in town, Vi?
I wanted to see Hunt.
Oh. Well, I suppose you did have to explain things to him. I guess he was entitled to that much. How'd he take it? When you told him you couldn't marry him?
I didn't tell him that, George. We're going to get married as soon as we can. He's coming to get me tonight.
Well, I sure didn't feel like sticking around for another one of their arguments, so I sort of sneaked out the front door and climbed into the saddle. Let's go, boy. Come on. I figured I'd ride in town and get me something to eat while I was at it. Maybe while I was gone, George and Viola had come to some sort of an understanding. At least I hoped they would. It took me about 30 minutes to reach Adobe Junction. Looked like there was only one cafe. Molly's Home Cooked Meal. It's right next door to the Mercantile. Whoa, boy. Whoa, Scar. Whoa. Tossed the reins over a hitching rail and started into the restaurant.
Mr. Ponset? You're Britt Ponset, ain't you?
That's right.
Viola told me what you looked like, but I'd have recognized you anyway.
Oh?
You're a six-shooter. I've heard a lot about that gun. How fast you are with it. My brother, he found out firsthand.
Your brother?
Judd Coffin.
I see.
My name is Hunt Coffin, Mr. Ponset.
Yeah, I sort of figured that.
I just wanted you to know I sure do appreciate what you did last night, taking Viola's part with George.
Well, George was pretty upset. I don't think he meant to carry on that way. He's real fond of his sister when you get right down to it.
If he ever hits her again, I'll kill him.
Well, I guess you and Viola won't have to worry much about George any longer.
What do you mean?
Well, she says you're going to get married right away. You're coming out after her tonight, is that right?
She told you that?
Well, sure. That's true, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't want him to know. He'll try to stop us. I told her not to say anything. We could have been gone before he ever found out.
Now, Viola's not the kind of a person to do a thing behind anybody's back.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's something else he ought to know. I bought me a gun this morning, Mr. Ponset.
Is that so?
I'll be out at the Wilcox place as soon as I get off work tonight. And I'll have the gun with me.
Uh-huh. And George said you'd get a gun the first time you figured you needed one.
Well, he was right.
Yeah. It sure looks like he was. Well, so long, Coffin.
What in thunder happened to you, Britt?
Oh, I thought maybe you and Viola ought to have a chance to talk this out in private, so I rode in town.
You needn't have bothered.
Huh?
Tried to talk to her, but she just wouldn't listen.
She wouldn't, huh?
I don't know what to do, Britt. I just don't. After last night, I thought she'd see things my way. I guess you were right. She's more set in marrying him now than ever. If Paul was still alive, he'd find some way of stopping her. I guess I'm letting him down.
Well, where's Vi now?
Upstairs, packing. I thought about locking her in her room, but it just wouldn't do no good. Besides, she ain't to blame, not really.
That's right, George. A person just can't help
It's his fault. Everything that's happened. And it's him I'm going to take care of.
As a matter of fact, I ran into Hunt Coffin while I was in town.
You saw it?
Yeah, we had a little chat. He's kind of upset about what happened last night.
He's upset. He'll have something to get upset about if he comes around here tonight.
Well, maybe you ought to know, George. He's got himself a gun.
There. What'd I tell you? Just like his brother. Why? Why, your friend's coming out here with a gun. He means to kill me. A man who'll take up a gun once, he won't stop, not as long as he lives. Now what do you think of it?
Viola didn't answer George. She just stayed upstairs and went on with whatever she was doing. George walked into the hall. I heard him rummaging around in the closet. And he was gone for a minute or so, and then he came back into the parlor. He was carrying his pa's old Winchester rifle. He jammed some cartridges into the magazine and stared out of the window. The sun was just beginning to drop behind the hills to the west, and the shadows on the slopes were turning orange. And George pulled up a chair and sat down. The rifle was lying on his lap, the barrel pointing toward the open window beside him. George?
Yeah?
You use that gun, you'll be doing the very thing you accuse him of.
There's a difference, Britt. This is my property. Pa left it to me outright.
Sure.
If Hunt Coffin sets foot on it, he's trespassing. I got a right to shoot a trespasser, ain't I?
No, you haven't. Not under these circumstances.
You gonna interfere? You gonna take his side?
I'm not taking anybody's side. I'm riding into town, and I won't be back. You'll have to hire somebody else to handle your cattle drive.
Suits me. I'll be able to handle the cattle myself now. I won't have to stay here after tonight.
You know, George, he might kill you. Leastwise, if he takes after his brother, there's a good chance of it.
Well, it looks like you're going to be around for it, whatever happens.
What?
There he is now, pulling into the yard.
Coffin! Get out of here, Coffin! I don't want no trouble, Wilcox.
Well, then start moving.
I'm taking Viola with me.
You're not taking anybody.
I could see Hunt Coffin through the window over George's shoulder. He was climbing down from his buggy. Looked like he was carrying a .44 in his holster. George Wilcox stood up. His back shut off my view of Hunt. He shoved the stock of his rifle against his shoulder, and his finger curled around the trigger. He shifted his weight onto one foot, and I got a glimpse of Hunt again. His right hand was inching toward that .44, but he hadn't pulled it out yet.
I'm coming in and get her, Wilcox. Go on and draw. I know you got a gun. Go on, use it. I don't think I'll need it.
I gave him a chance. You heard me, Britt. He
There
wouldn't
wasn't
take
much
it.
time to answer him. His finger was already squeezing back. There wasn't even time to get over to him. I grabbed for my gun. The bullet hit him right in the arm, spun him half around. For a second, I didn't know what had happened. I hadn't fired at him. I hadn't even had a chance to finish drawing. And then I saw a little spiral of smoke on the hall stairs behind him.
Viola,
Put down that rifle, George.
you're crazy, Vi.
Why? Are you all right?
Stay there, Hunt. I'll be right out. Put it down, George. Now, I'm going away with Hunt. And if you come after me, it won't be Hunt who will stop you. Kind of funny, isn't it? You always said Hunt would turn out bad because his brother was that way. And they both had the same blood in them. What about it, George? Would you be willing to shoot me?
What are you talking about, Vi? You know I'd never do a thing like that.
Why not? I was willing to shoot you. We've got the same blood, haven't we? Goodbye, George. Goodbye, Mr. Ponset.
So long, Vi. Good luck.
Upward. Up.
She wasn't making any sense, Britt, asking if I'd shoot her. Why, that's just plain foolishness.
Yeah, well, I'll take you into town, George. You better see the doc about that arm.
My own sister. My own flesh and blood. I sure had her figured wrong.
Well, maybe you had young Coffin figured wrong, too. Come on, let's go. Well, the next morning the boys brought in George's herd, and what with that arm of his and all, I agreed to drive them north. It was nearly 3 months before I got back to Adobe Junction again. Viola and Hunt, they were married and had a little house in town. But George, he hadn't been near me. He hadn't said a word to Vi since that night she left the ranch. Vi was kind of upset about it, but she kept telling herself that sooner or later George would see where he'd been wrong and he'd come around. I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe he will.
The Six-Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burt and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Barbara Eiler, Herb Ellis, and Sam Edwards. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. Oh, by the way, you'll be interested in knowing that the Six-Shooter has been chosen for broadcast to our men overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Services. This is John Wall speaking. Macdonald Carey stars in Jason and the Golden Fleece tonight on the NBC Radio Network. In a moment, James Stewart as the Six-Shooter. Tomorrow night here on NBC, there's a complete lineup of both music and laughter for you. On the musical side, there's the Dinah Shore Show, followed by Songs with Sinatra. For humor, The Bob Hope Show, followed by the Phil Harris-Alice Faye Show. Then comes Can You Top This? And your nightly visit with Fibber McGee and Molly. A great Friday night lineup of programs, all of them heard only on NBC. James Stewart as the Sick Shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl. Its handle unmarked. People call them both the Sick Shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the Sick Shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still-remembered legends.
We'll be turning in here, Michael.
Huh?
As long as they're going into town anyway, we can be seeing whether there might be anything Homer Dunphy's needing.
Well, we got enough to do, Pa, just getting the things we need for ourselves.
Oh, now, what kind of a neighbor are you, Michael O'Hara? We'll turn in, I said.
Okay.
That's one thing that you'll have to be learning. A man can't live by himself. And there's many a time Mr. Dunphy has done us a favor.
Yeah, sure. Hold on. Ho, yes. Ho, sure. Ho.
Mr. Dunphy! It's Sean O'Hara, Mr. Dunphy.
I don't see no sign of him. Maybe he's gone into town himself. Hold on.
Don't be in such a hurry now. The least we can do is... Mike, would you listen now?
Huh?
Them cows. There's something the matter with Mr. Dunphy's cows.
I reckon they're hungry, Pa. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's more than hunger that's troubling them animals. Come on, boy. Now, we'll have a look.
Oh, now, Pa, wait.
Michael.
All right. Like as not, Mr. Danfield ain't going to appreciate us butting into his affairs. He's always been able to run this farm without any...
Look there, would you look? Aha. Yeah, they've not been milked, that's what it is. The sun's in the middle of the sky and they've not been milked.
Yeah.
But I knew there was something wrong here. I felt it the minute we pulled up in the yard, so I did.
Maybe Mr. Danfield's sick. Maybe that's it, huh?
Sure, and I hope that's all it is. But when I get one of these foreboding feelings, well... Mr. Dunfield.
Well, try it, Pa. See if it's locked.
Oh, no, I don't know. It doesn't seem right to enter another man's house when he's not
That's for his own sake, ain't it? Here. If he ain't home, we'll leave him a note explaining the... Pa.
What is it, Mike?
Over there, across the room by the sofa.
Michael, that's Mr. Dunfield. Oh, he's been shot bad, real bad. But there's the spark of life left into him. Would you get the doctor, Michael, as fast as you can, and I'll stay here till you come back.
Sure, boss.
And the sheriff, too, the sheriff. You best bring the sheriff.
Yeah, boss.
That poor Mr. Dunfield.
I'd expected to reach Pearl City before nightfall, but looked like I'd been a mite optimistic. The sky had already lost most of its color, and I still had a good 15 miles to go, so I slowed Scar down to a walk. Easy, boy, easy. Oh, here it is. I started looking around for a place to make camp. It didn't really much matter when I got to town. The spring roundups were sure to be over, and a day or two, one way or the other, wouldn't make any difference about my finding a summer job. Besides being out in the range for another night, I'd probably get a lot more sleep than I would in any of those hotel beds. Well, about a mile further on, I spotted a little flicker of light behind a couple of gray-green boulders, and when I rode up closer, I heard somebody singing and playing a guitar. It looked like I wasn't the only one in the range that night.
Oh, howdy.
Howdy. Wow, that sounds real pleasant. Mind if I use your fire for a spell?
You're more than welcome to it, mister. Climb down from your horse and make yourself at home.
Wow. Thanks very much.
I'm heating up some beans. There's plenty for both of us.
Well, that's mighty considerate of you, but I've got some grub of my own here.
Well, there's no point in wasting it, is there? Like I said, I got more than enough here. That is, if you don't mind eating beans.
No, I reckon that's what I'm carrying, too. My name's Ponset, Britt Ponset.
Well, I'll be darned.
Huh?
I sure heard about you, Mr. Ponset, and that gun of yours.
Yeah.
I'm Toby Yeager.
I'm pleased to meet you, Yeager.
Here, just let me get my guitar out of your way so you can sit down.
Oh, thanks. I hope I didn't interrupt your singing. That sounded real pretty.
That just sort of helps to pass the time, especially when I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
You care to try a tune, Mr. Ponset?
Oh, no. I'm afraid I'm not much of a singer. You just go right ahead.
Well, ain't anybody going to hear us, except a few coyotes, and they're not likely to be very critical. What do you say? Shall we give our vocal cords a little exercise while we're waiting for them beans to heat up?
Well, as I said...
Come on, I like that third verse. Oh, beat the drum slowly and play the fife lowly. Come on, Mr. Ponset.
Play the dead march as you carry me along. Take me to the green valley, there lay the sod o'er me. For I'm a young cowboy and know I done wrong. George, sounds like we were mistaken about those coyotes. Did you hear?
This ain't one of their favorites.
Yeah, I guess so.
How about you providing some music now?
Oh, me? No.
Here's the guitar.
No. I'm sorry. I just don't play at all.
Oh, come on. You're joshing me, Ponset.
No. I'm afraid I don't know the first thing about it.
Well, most any cowboy can get a tune out of a guitar.
Maybe so, but it just seems like I never had much of an ear for music.
You don't need no ear. Here, come on, let me show you.
Huh?
Now, you just watch my fingers.
Yeah?
You'll see there's nothing to it.
Well...
Yeah. That's simple enough, ain't it?
Well,
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll make the chords, and you do the strumming.
All right.
You go ahead. Go ahead and strum. Yes, you're doing fine.
Oh.
That's just fine.
The strumming part's a little easier than the chording, though.
Oh, it's all easy once you get the hang of it. Now, give me your left hand.
How's that?
Your left hand. I'll put your fingers where they belong for the first chord. I see now. Here. There. Okay, strum.
Well, let's see.
All right. Here's the next chord. See now. Here's the third one. There.
I'll be darned. Yeah, this is kind of fun.
Of course it is. Now you do them yourself.
What?
Those three chords I just taught you.
Oh, you mean you do them all alone?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, no, this contraption just isn't for me.
Oh, you mustn't give up yet. A little more practice, you'd be a first-rate guitar player.
No, that's mighty flattering, Yeager, but I think I'd better stick to my humming.
Well...
You go right ahead now. Play some more. That tune you were trying to teach me, that sounds real pretty.
You mean this one?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard that before, have I?
Oh, it's brand new. Folks back east are all singing it, but it ain't got this far west yet.
Oh, I see. Are you from the east?
No. Utah's my home. But I spent a couple of months in Chicago last winter. That's where I picked up this tune.
I see.
I sure didn't cotton to city life, Mr. Ponset. I headed back this way first chance I got. Been laying track for the Santa Fe.
That's so?
Line reaches Pearl City now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. But they had to stop there for a spell on account of some legal ruckus about the right-of-way. So I took my pay, bought myself that mare over yonder, and moseyed on. I don't know what it is about this song. Once you hear it, it just sort of sticks with you.
Yeah, it does.
Silver threads among the gold. That's the title. Darling, darling, I am growing old. Silver threads among the gold shine upon my brow today. Life is fading fast away, but my darling, you will be always young and fair to me. Yes, my darling, you will be always young and fair to me.
Oh, that's real nice, Jaeger. Oh, God. Uh-oh. Oh, there they are again.
It's got some more verses, but that's the only one I can remember. You care to join in?
No. I think I've bothered the coyotes enough for one evening.
Well, it looks like them beans are getting hot. Suppose we can interrupt our concert until after supper. Probably sound better on a full stomach anyhow.
No, I don't know, Jaeger. In my case, I reckon it wouldn't make much difference. Well, we had our fill of beans, and then Jaeger picked up his guitar again, did some more singing. What with the music and all, I felt kind of sleepy, so I spread out my bedroll. The last thing I remember is hearing that guitar as I dropped off. The next morning after we had breakfast, Jaeger headed on south, and I swung north toward Pearl City. A couple hours later, I was riding past the farms just this side of town, and I noticed a buggy and 4 or 5 horses pulled up in Homer Danfield's front yard. Homer had always lived alone ever since I could remember. He never had been much of a man for company either, so I turned off the road into the lane leading to the house. Sean O'Hara was sitting on the steps whittling. On the size of the pile of shavings at his feet, figured he'd been doing it for quite a spell. Whoa, Scar, whoa. Oh, Sean?
Huh?
Hi. Don't you remember me? Britt Ponset.
Oh, why, for goodness sake, Mr. Ponset, I never had no idea you was in these parts. Lord, it feels a miracle you've come.
What are you talking about, Sean?
Oh, it's a terrible thing that's happened to Homer Dunfield.
What?
Him lying in there right now, hovering between life and death, so he is.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. He's pretty sick, huh?
Has been shot, Mr. Ponset. A big hole right over his chest.
Is that so?
It was along about noontime yesterday when we found him, my son Michael and myself. Oh, that poor man.
Well, just what happened, Sean?
Well, now, if you ask me, it was a thief who done it. Sure, and from the looks of his house, somebody turned things every which way searching for valuables. And besides, anybody who knew Homer Danfield, anybody from around Pearl City, that is, they'd have no call to try to kill him. He was a well-liked man, Mr. Ponset.
Well, he sure was, yeah.
And the doctor's staying with him almost 24 hours now. And Sheriff Gentle, too. But, you know, the poor Homer has not breathed a conscious breath during the whole day and the night that followed. Yeah, and like as not, he'll never be able to tell us just exactly what...
Oh, hello, Sheriff.
Huh? Oh, howdy, Britt. Where'd you come from?
Oh, just passed through on my way to town, and Sean's been telling me about Homer.
Yeah, has there been any improvement, Sheriff?
Well, I wouldn't exactly call it an improvement. He did come to for a couple of minutes.
Oh?
You don't say.
Yes, he told me what he could. But I'm afraid it won't do much good. The fellow broke in night before last, along about midnight. He was a stranger. Homer had never seen him before. And he didn't get a very good look at him either.
Well, he was trying to rob Mr. Danfield. Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's the way it was.
Aha.
Homer heard him prowling around in the parlor and come downstairs. The fellow let fly with a slug, caught Homer right under the shoulder. He's lost a lot of blood. The doc thinks maybe one of his lungs is nicked, too.
Yeah, that sure is too bad.
Yeah. Well, not much I can do without a description, evidence.
Sure, no one. Couldn't he tell you anything at all about the man?
No, as far as Homer can recollect, he was medium height, medium build. That's about all. Except for the song he was singing.
His song?
Yeah. Homer didn't pass out right after he was shot. Not entirely.
He remembers hearing the fellow searching around and humming and singing to himself while he was at it. Something about silver and gold and getting old. Homer ain't too clear in his own mind, and well, as far as I can tell, it's a song I never heard before. You ever hear it, Sean?
No, it don't sound familiar to me, Sheriff.
What about you, Britt? Britt?
I've heard it, Sheriff.
Huh?
At least I've heard something mighty similar. Mighty similar.
We'll return to James Stewart as the 6-shooter in just a moment. Our country was founded by men who had faith in God and who were willing to endure hardship and sacrifice for the sake of that faith. In these troubled times, there is need to support a way of life based on the enduring principles of religion, which knit the family together, make for good citizenship, and build the character of the children. The religious institutions in your community need your interest and support, so take an active part in religious affairs. Your pastor, rabbi, or priest will give you invaluable family counsel and aid if you're a newcomer to the community. To face the problems of the future, America must be morally strong, and that moral strength comes through worship and faith. Go to church this week and take someone with you. Now, Act 2 of The 6-Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponset.
Well, I told Sheriff Gentle about running into Toby Yeager and his guitar, about the tune Toby tried to teach me. Of course, that didn't prove that Yeager had anything to do with shooting Homer Danfield, even though it was a new song. Well, like Toby said, it was popular back east, and there might be other folks who knew it out west, too. But Yeager had been around Pearl City lately. He told me so himself. He was a medium-sized man and a stranger, so I gave the sheriff all the details I could remember.
Yeah. Well, it sure ain't much to go on, but it's something. I reckon we better get started. Tell you the truth, Britt, the doc don't figure Homer will last more than another day or two. And if we don't get this Yeager fellow back before he... Well, you're saying that he sung a certain song. That ain't going to convict him of murder.
No, of course not.
Well, let's go.
Well, you don't need me, Sheriff.
I need somebody to pick up this fellow's trail and point him out to me, don't I?
Well, I could tell you.
Oh, we're just wasting time, Britt. If we're going after this man, let's get started.
All right, Sheriff. All right. It took us a couple hours to ride back to the place where Yeager and I had camped for the night. When we'd split up, he said he was heading south, so the sheriff and I looked around for his trail that way. We didn't have too much trouble finding it. There was only one thing. He hadn't gone south, leastwise not for very long. As soon as he hit Little Creek, a mile or so from the camp, he turned west towards Saddle Mountain. We were able to make pretty good time the rest of the day, and that trail didn't look like he was in too much of a hurry, so I figured maybe we'd been gaining on him. We didn't stop for supper. We just kept right on going, and even after nightfall, there was enough moon so we could still make out his tracks. Well, about 9 o'clock, we were moving through the pass between Saddle Mountain and Porcupine Peak. We're getting pretty high up, too. Not very many trees, just a scrub pine every once in a while. Easy, Scrub. Whoa. There. Hold up a minute, Sheriff.
Huh?
I thought I heard something. No, I guess I was wrong. Or maybe the wind's changed. Here. No. There it is again. You hear it? Hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he must be up there. Right around that bend.
Think we'd better move in on foot.
No, I rode up on him last night. He seemed tame enough.
Well, okay.
Where'd you walk?
Hello, Yeager.
Well, Mr. Ponset, thought you was heading other way.
Yeah, I sort of changed my mind.
You back for another guitar lesson, huh?
No, not exactly. Jaeger, this is Cleet Gentle from Pearl City.
Howdy, Mr. Gentle.
You two never met up before, Jaeger, while you were working in Pearl City.
No? No, not that I recollect. Why?
Mr. Gentle's the sheriff there.
Sheriff?
That's right.
Well, I was only in town for a few days, and I was sort of on my good behavior. Leastwise, I never had no run-in with the law.
Yeah.
There's something I can do for you, gents?
Jaeger, a fellow was shot the other day. Shot and robbed. Farmer just outside of town.
Oh?
He didn't recognize the man who did it. He remembers one thing about him, though. A song he was singing.
Well, I reckon I ain't the only man that gives out with a song once in a while, am I?
No. No, but this particular song, well, it's the one you played for me last night.
I played a lot of songs for you last night, Mr. Ponset.
Silver Threads Among the Gold. That was the name of it.
Well?
You said it was a new tune, as I recall. You picked it up back east.
Did I?
Yeah.
Well, ain't you kind of jumping to conclusions, Mr. Ponset?
Nobody's accusing you of anything, Jaeger.
Well, then just what is it you want?
I want you to come back to Pearl City with me. Let Homer Danfield take a good look at you, see if he can identify you.
Danfield?
Yeah, that's the man that was shot.
He's still alive, huh?
Do you think he was dead, Jaeger?
Oh, I didn't think nothing about it one way or the other.
How much money you got with you?
Oh, $40, $50.
Mind showing it to me?
Money looks all the same, don't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Here.
20, 30, 40, 45, 48. $48.
Well, that's what I said, about $50.
That's what Mr. Danfield had stolen from his china cabinet. About $50.
The money's mine. I was working for the Santa Fe. They just paid me off the other day.
You're wearing a gun, I see.
Well, so are you. So's Ponset.
I'll take it.
Sure.
All right, Jaeger. Let's go.
You want to get started right now?
As soon as you're ready.
It'll take me a couple of minutes to get my pack together and my horse saddled.
Well, I'll give you a hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ponset. Yeah, here. Would you mind fastening this onto the back of my saddle? I sure wouldn't want to go off and leave my guitar behind.
Yeah, I'll take care of it for you. Well, we rode all night, the three of us. Nobody did much talking, but every once in a while, Jaeger had let loose with some humming, some singing. He sure didn't seem very worried about what had happened when he came face to face with Danfield. I couldn't make up my mind. Maybe it was just that he had a clear conscience, or maybe he was putting up a good front for our benefit. Anyway, along about 6 o'clock in the morning, we were riding past the O'Hara farm. That meant we were almost there. Danfield's place would be next. Sean O'Hara came running out of the barn carrying a pail of milk, and when he saw us, he set the milk down and gave a holler.
Hey, Sheriff Gentle, hold up a minute, Sheriff.
Whoa now, whoa there, whoa.
Whoa, Scar.
Morning, Sean.
So you found the fellow you were looking for, I take it?
Yeah, we found him.
Well, it's sure too bad you went to all this trouble.
All right.
What do you mean?
Poor Mr. Danfield. He is no longer with us. No. He passed away a little before midnight last night. God rest his soul.
Oh.
Tell me, Sean, did he say anything more before he died?
No, Sheriff, not a word.
I see.
Well,
looks like you won't have no more use for me, Sheriff. You ain't going to prefer charges of murder just on account of a song I happen to sing to Ponset, are you?
Well,
I guess he's right, Sheriff.
yeah. All right, Jaeger. Here's your money and your gun.
Thank you. Well, so long, gents. Come on, boy.
Jaeger.
Yeah?
I don't know whether you had anything to do with this or not. I guess nobody will ever know for certain, except you.
I guess that's so.
But you'll know it, Jaeger. And if you did it all the rest of your life, you'll know it.
That all you wanted to tell me, Ponset?
That's all.
Well, so long.
What do you think, Britt? Did he do it?
Sheriff, I just don't know.
There's some coffee in the kitchen if you'd be liking a cup.
Thanks, Sean, but I'd better get in town.
Hey, well, how about you, Mr. Ponset?
I reckon I could use a cup of coffee.
Well, I'll be seeing you.
Take it easy.
Sure. Sorry you had that ride for nothing, Britt.
No, it's all right. I guess I brought it on myself. So long.
The kitchen's doors are on this way, Mr. Ponset. No, it sure was a shame about Homer Dunfield.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah, morning, Pa.
Oh, now it's about time you got up, young man. You remember Mr. Ponset, don't you?
Oh, sure. Hi, Britt.
All right, just fine, Mike.
Hey, what are you doing with Toby Yeager? Is he a friend of yours?
No, not exactly. You know him, Mike?
Oh, well, he was working over on the railroad. We met a couple of times. Played poker over at Red Philpott's place.
Now, Michael, I told you can't afford to be losing your money.
Oh, I never lost, Pa. Not when Toby was in the game. Why, he's got the worst luck any man I ever played with. Take the other night. Railroad paid him off, and he lost every cent of it.
What night was that, Mike? Was that the night Homer Danfield was shot?
Well, come to think of it, I guess it was.
I see. All right, I think maybe I'll skip that coffee for the time being, Sean. Thanks anyway.
Yeager? Huh? Oh. What is it now, Ponset?
Let you and me go into town, huh?
What for? Easy going, easy.
That $48 you're carrying, that isn't Santa Fe money.
What do you mean?
You lost your pay the other night in a poker game, all of it.
Oh?
Where'd you get the $48, Yeager?
What might be kind of hard to explain, Ponset?
It sure would.
Looks like you was wrong, don't it?
Huh?
Well, you said if I was the fellow who shot him, nobody'd know it, except me.
You shot him, huh?
Sure.
Well, then I was wrong. Maybe we'd better go back to Pearl City, huh?
Sure.
The Six Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is based on a character created by Frank Burt and is written by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture, The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Ben Wright, Bert Holland, Will Wright, and Barney Phillips, who played Toby. The guitarist was Bob Bain. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. Oh, by the way, you'll be interested in knowing that the Six Shooter has been chosen for broadcast to our men overseas through the facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Services. This is John Wall speaking. MacDonald Carey stars in Jason and the Golden Fleece tonight on the NBC Radio Network. In a moment, you'll hear James Stewart as the Six Shooter. But first, Friday evening on NBC, hear the Dinah Shore Show and Songs with Sinatra. The Laughter starts tomorrow with the Bob Hope Show and continues with that wonderful Phil Harris-Alice Faye Show. But that's not all. You'll also hear Can You Top This and Fibber McGee and Molly. It's a great Friday night lineup of programs, all of them heard only on NBC. James Stewart as the 6-shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl, its handle unmarked. People call him both the 6-shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the 6-shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still remembered legends.
Well, at first I didn't know what I was getting into. The town of Virtue City had never looked like this before. Banner over the main street, posters stuck in the store windows, bunting draped across most of the buildings. It was the wrong time of the year for the county fair. I pulled up the Mansion Hotel and headed into the lobby.
Yes, sir?
I'd like a room for the night.
Well, I guess we can fix you up, mister, if you'll just sign the book.
Sure. Oh, by golly,
Never mind. I'll blot it up. You just stand back out of the way. I put a new point in that pen this morning, but I guess some people, well...
I sure am sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, that'll be 50 cents in advance, Mr. Ponset?
That's right. Here you go.
You're really Britt Ponset?
Well, if he ain't, he's sure been fooling a lot of folks for quite a spell. How are you, Britt?
Well, Doc Cross. Where'd you come from?
I've been sitting there behind that geranium plant. I thought I recognized you when you come in.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Well, here's your key, Mr. Ponset, number 12.
Oh, thanks.
About that ink blot, I know it wasn't your fault. They just don't make pen points the way they used to. Inferior workmanship.
Sure.
You in a hurry to go upstairs, Britt?
No, not especially.
Well, come on over to the window and sit for a spell. We can sort of keep our eye on the street and see what's going on.
All right, Doc.
Well, what you been up to, Britt?
Oh, same as usual. I was riding herd over to Smoke Falls for the last 6-7 weeks. Probably go back there in the spring.
Uh-huh. Here, just let me get my instrument bag out of the way. Now, there's a place for you.
You treating somebody in the hotel?
No, not exactly. I sort of make my headquarters here in the hotel nowadays.
Well, what happened to your regular office?
Oh, I still got it. But, hotel's handier. What with all this fighting and shooting going on so much of the time.
Shooting?
You ain't heard the news, huh, Britt?
No, guess I haven't.
Well, you see, Gus Cotton moved into Virtue City a couple of months ago.
Gus Cotton?
You know who Gus is, Britt, that gunfighter who used to be part of the McGinnis gang over at Willow Fork.
Oh, sure, yeah, I've heard of him.
Well, it seems Gus and Tracer McGinnis had sort of a falling out. Gus decided it'd be healthier for him and his kid brother Roy to change residence, so they come over here. And by now, they're just about taking over the whole town.
Oh, I just can't believe that Sheriff Davenport would let a thing like that happen, Doc.
George Davenport was killed last August, Britt.
He was killed? No.
I reckon it was an accident. At least that's what the inquest said.
Well, who's taking his place?
There ain't been nobody so far. New sheriff will be elected tomorrow, along with the mayor and the usual town officers.
Oh, I see. So that's why the place all fixed up, huh? Election day,
Yeah.
huh? I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, it's been a real hot campaign, too. Sheriff part of it, that is. I ain't had so much medical business since the Apaches was moved on to the reservation.
Yeah, well, who's running?
Ernie Needle. He's one of the candidates. You remember Ernie, Brett, the blacksmith?
Oh, sure. And there's a good man, too. He'd make a good sheriff, I imagine.
Yeah, if he wins. Roy Cotton's running against him, Gus's brother.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Of course, in a fair election, Ernie'd win hands down, but Gus Cotton's doing his best to see that it won't be fair.
He is, huh?
Yeah. Half the voters in town have been bought off. The ones who won't be bought, well, they've been threatened. Why, if anybody even... Britt, maybe you can give us a hand.
Huh?
I'm sort of chairman of the group that's backing Ernie Needle, the Citizens Committee to Keep Virtue in Virtue City. That's what we call ourselves.
I see.
Now, Britt, if you could join up with us...
Now, hold on, Doc. Now, I'm not a voter in this town. I'm not even a resident.
I know, but you've got influence. Lots of influence. And if you...
No, well, Doc,
Well, you have lots of influence, Britt. And look, if you was to come to our rally at the schoolhouse tonight and sort of sit up there on the platform next to Ernie Needle, well, that might win him some of Roy Cotton's votes.
No, I'm sorry, Doc. Now, this just isn't any of my business. Now, you know that as well as I do.
Now, Britt...
No, so long, Doc. Well, I went upstairs to my room. Number 12 was on the north side facing Ernie Needle's blacksmith shop. And looks like Ernie had closed up for the day. He's probably out politicking somewhere. The room seemed kind of stuffy, so I opened up the window. It sure was warm. Sounded like some more business was heading Doc's way. I leaned out, but I couldn't see anything. The shooting must have been around in front. Oh, well. Yeah? Yeah, come on in.
Howdy.
Howdy.
You're Britt Ponset.
That's right.
I'm Roy Cotton.
Oh?
Understand you were having a little chat with Doc Cross just now.
Uh-huh.
Doc a friend of yours?
Yeah, I guess you could say so, Roy.
Well, you know it's funny, ain't it, how friends sometimes get a man into trouble?
Oh? Is that so?
Yeah. Yeah. You plan to stay around town for long, Ponset?
Oh, I hadn't made up my mind yet. Why?
I was just wondering if you were going to be here for the election tomorrow. You heard about the election?
I heard about it.
Well, I wasn't anxious to run for sheriff, you understand, but folks seemed to think it was my duty, so I had to oblige them.
Well, I wouldn't worry about it, Roy. You might not be elected.
I'll be elected.
Why, do you got the votes counted already, huh?
I'll be elected. If there ain't no outside interference.
I see.
So maybe it'd be best if you just moseyed on out without sticking around for the vote.
Well, the doc mentioned something about a rally tonight, asked me to attend.
You're not going to attend to no rally, Ponset?
That's exactly what I told the doc.
You turned him down?
That's right.
Well, I guess I needn't have bothered you.
But now that you mention it, Cotton, I'm sort of reconsidering my decision.
What do you mean?
Well, you're barging in here and ordering me around might make me sort of consider changing my mind.
Oh, now, you listen here, Ponset. You ain't going to that rally tonight. You ain't even going to be in Virtue City after sundown.
I'm not, huh?
Well, if you are, you're just asking for me and Gus to do something about it.
Maybe I am, Cotton. Maybe I am.
Okay, Ponset. You had your warning.
You're right.
Yeah?
I'm not leaving town, so if you want to do something about it, this is as good a time as any other.
Huh?
That gun you're wearing's loaded, isn't it?
Well, sure, but...
Well, then why don't you go ahead and draw?
Well, you ain't got your six-shooter.
It's right here on the dresser.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd be taking advantage.
It might not work out that way. Well,
I don't want to shoot up no hotel room, Ponset.
The rent's paid in advance. All right, Cotton.
Now, look here, Ponset. My coming up here to see you, well, it was my brother's idea. Gus thought, now, what I mean is, he said that you was to have till sundown to get out of town, and he wouldn't like it if I was to jump the gun.
I guess nobody exactly welcomes the idea of being told what he can do and what he can't do. And I suppose when it comes right down to it, I'm as stubborn as the next man. So, instead of leaving town, I had supper in the hotel dining room, and afterwards, well, I sort of moseyed over in the direction of the schoolhouse. There were only 3 or 4 horses out in front, a couple of buggies. Didn't look like the Citizens Committee to keep virtue in Virtue City had drawn much of a crowd. Well, I hadn't really planned on attending the rally. I was going to walk right by and head back to the hotel. But just as I started to move past the school, I spotted Roy Cotton waiting behind a big elm tree across the street. There was another fellow with him, bigger, older. Stood to reason he was Roy's brother, Gus. And it stood to reason that if I left without going inside, they'd figured they'd bluffed me into keeping away. So, the meeting was in the combination 4th, 5th, 6th grade classroom, and Doc Cross was introducing the various candidates when I opened the door.
And as candidate for mayor, our good friend Cecil Potter. Oh, yeah. You all know Bo Spitzer, who's running for coroner. And last but far from least, the man who will be responsible for maintaining law and order. Ernie Needle, candidate for sheriff. Now, folks, I guess that's about all, so let's get... Wait a minute. Looks like we got us a visitor. Hey, sirree. Step right up here, Britt. Step right up here.
Now, wait a minute, Doc. I didn't mean to interrupt your meeting here. I was just strolling by.
Why, you ain't interrupting, Britt. You're a godsend. Folks, listen to me now. Now, quiet down. Quiet down, will you? Now, listen. Mr. Ponset's arrival here puts a whole new complexion on things.
What? Well, I sure don't see how
I
it
know
does
there
that.
ain't very many of us here tonight. And from the size of this meeting, it looks like we're fighting a hopeless battle. But we ain't. Not now. Not anymore. There's enough of us here to spread the word. We gotta see to it that by the time the polls open tomorrow, every voting citizen in Virtue City knows that the 6-shooter is on our side.
Now, whoa, Doc. Now, hold on here.
Amos, you take the folks who live west of Cedar Street. Al, you take the section over by the creek. I'll cover the area along Clinton Avenue. And another thing, you tell everybody that Britt will be right there at the polls to see that the voting's done on the up and up.
Now, Doc. Now, you listen to me, Doc. Now, see here, Doc. Now, you just see here, Doc.
Was there something you wanted to say, Britt?
Well, Doc, you know doggone well there's something I want to say. I'm not going to have folks running all over town claiming that I'm interfering in this election. Now, you just go and call them off, Doc, and you just stop them before it's too late.
Well, I'm afraid it's too late now, Britt. It looks to me like they're on the way. And I better get started myself. I'm going to make it over to my section before everybody's asleep.
Okay, Doc, okay. You just go right ahead, but you're going to be pretty foolish looking in the morning.
What do you mean, Britt?
I mean that I'm not taking part in your election tomorrow, no matter what you tell people.
You won't do your duty, huh?
My duty is to mind my own business.
Britt, the law says there's supposed to be one man at the polls who's unbiased, who's neutral, so to speak.
What?
Well, of course, your sympathies may sort of lie with Ernie Needle and our committee, but technically, you're nonpartisan. Seeing as how you can't even vote yourself, I mean.
How's that?
Now, look, Britt. All that I'm trying to do is to see that this election's carried off strictly according to the law. The law says we got to have us a nonpartisan president at the polls. Well, I'm not even certain that the election would be legal if you wasn't ashore.
Well, I wouldn't want to stand in the way of the election being I mean, if you're certain that... well, if it's really necessary. But honestly, Doc, I just can't believe that...
Well, it's up to you, Britt. Entirely up to you. Well, so long.
Now, Doc... wait a minute.
Be set up in the hotel lobby, Britt. Polls open at 7 a.m. Just let your conscience be your guide, Britt. Let your conscience be your guide. Night.
Good night.
We'll return to James Stewart as the 6-shooter in just a moment. Meantime, I'd like to pass on a word of thanks for the many gratifying letters we receive each week from you, our audience. And this word of thanks comes not only from Jimmy Stewart, but from our director, Jack Johnstone, our writer, Frank Burt, our skilled technicians, in fact, all of us who are involved in the production of the program. We appreciate your letters far more than you may think, even though we may not be able to answer all of them. That is why we take this way of saying thank you.
Well, I just couldn't seem to get to sleep that night, and along about 5 a.m. I gave up trying. And it was just as well it did, because that was when Doc Cross showed up to take me down to breakfast. He kept saying that he wasn't trying to influence me one way or the other about being an election official, but as soon as we finished eating, he sure steered me straight toward that voting booth in the lobby. And the next thing I knew, somebody handed me a sheet of paper with a list of names on it, and people started filing up to get their ballots, and, well, the voting went off real smooth. There was just one shooting, and that turned out to be just a flesh wound. And when it finally came time to shut down the polls, just about everybody who was eligible had cast a ballot. There'd been a real good turnout, too. I didn't stick around for the counting. I figured I'd done my share, so I had some supper, and I went upstairs to my room. Oh, I sure was tired. Not having any sleep the night before and having to sit around indoors all day, well, I took my boots off. And I sort of stretched out flat on the bed for a couple minutes. I didn't intend to doze off. I was just trying to build up enough strength to go on with my undressing, but I don't know. Huh? What the Sam hell is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, is that you, Doc? Come in. Oh, what can I do for you?
We just finished counting the votes, Jeff Perkins and me.
Evening, Mr. Ponset.
Oh, howdy, Jeff. Well, well, how'd the election turn out?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, Britt.
Well, now, come on, Doc. Did Ernie win, or didn't he?
Well, no, Britt, no, he didn't win.
Oh.
But it could have been worse. It could have been lots worse.
I see. It was close, huh?
Oh, I wouldn't exactly call it close, Mr. Ponset.
Uh-huh. Well, suppose you just give me the figures, huh, Doc?
Well, in the race for sheriff, we figured that was the most important contest.
Yeah?
Ernie Needle got 7 votes.
7 votes, huh? Is that all?
Yeah, that was his total. We made certain.
And Roy Coffin, he got 33.
33. Well, I'm sorry, Doc, but I guess if the people want Roy for their sheriff, they're entitled to have him.
Yes. I'd say folks are entitled to whoever they want.
I'll have to admit, I'm kind of surprised, though. I thought Ernie'd do better than that. By the way folks were voting, I just thought that he... Now, just hold on a minute here, Doc. There's something funny here.
Huh?
Now, you said Ernie got 7 and Roy Coffin 33.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's 33 and 7. That only makes 40 votes. Why, there must have been twice that many votes cast.
101, you know.
101. Well, that means there are about 60 ballots you haven't accounted for.
61, to be exact, Britt.
Yeah?
That's how many you got.
That's how many I got. That's how many who got?
Britt, it gives me great pleasure to announce that you've just been elected sheriff of Virtue City by a landslide. Congratulations.
Now, hold on here, Doc. What do you mean?
Mr. Ponset, it's the greatest write-in campaign in the history of this here town.
Yes, sir, Britt.
What? Well, I can't believe this couldn't be true. It's just plain foolishness.
The people have spoken.
Doc Cross, if you had something to do with
it was
this...
a spontaneous movement, purely spontaneous.
Well, whatever it is, you know doggone well I won't take the job of sheriff. I don't even live here.
We just checked the Virtue City and Corporation papers. It must have been an oversight, but they don't say a word about town officials having to be residents.
Well, if you've got the idea I'm accepting this office, you're just mistaken. Even if this election is legal.
Oh, it was legal, all right. It was legal. And as of right now, you are the legally elected sheriff.
Uh-huh. All right. Then I resign.
Yeah, I sort of thought you might feel that way, so I did a little more checking. And according to the town laws, you've got to submit your resignation in writing to the mayor, and he's got to approve it. But we don't have a new mayor yet. Not until you get sworn in.
Now, hold on a minute, Doc. It was the office of sheriff that I got elected to, remember? You told
right,
me.
Mr. Ponset. It seems the voters kind of got in the habit of writing in your name, and well, they...
You don't mean they elect me mayor, too?
You had a 2-to-1 majority.
You don't mean... What?
Yep. You didn't do so good for coroner, though. Boke Spitzer beat you out by 4 votes.
But don't feel too bad about it, Britt. Boke's a real popular man.
Well, I just don't know what to say. Well, this is the most outlandish thing I've ever heard of.
It is mighty unusual. I'll agree with you there.
Unusual? It's ridiculous. Well, I can tell you I've got no more intention of being mayor than I have of being sheriff.
I don't blame you, Britt. Britt, I don't blame you. About the mayor part, that is. As a matter of fact, you couldn't hold both jobs if you wanted to. There's a town ordinance against it.
I don't care if the... What'd you say?
Yes, sir. One man can't hold both jobs.
Well, that's something.
But like I said, your resigning the sheriff's position is kind of complicated, you see. Not only have we got the problem of who's going to accept the resignation...
I'm the mayor. I'll accept it myself.
Well, even so, according to our statutes, when the sheriff resigns or retires, the job goes to the man who got the second highest number of votes.
Oh, you mean Roy Coffin would take over my place?
That's the gist of it, Mr. Ponset.
Uh-huh.
So you see the spot you'd be putting us in, Britt.
Besides, Mr. Ponset, the people elected you, and they're entitled to have you. You said so yourself.
When I said that, I didn't have any idea that this... Oh, now, look here. There's got to be some way out of this situation. Ernie Needle's the man this town needs for sheriff, and he ought to have the job. Isn't that what you wanted?
Well, maybe so, but... Well, I just don't see how we can work it out so he gets it. Oh, well, it's getting late. I guess you'll need your sleep. Probably have a big day tomorrow, what with all the swearing-in ceremony.
Now, don't run off, Doc. Now, this isn't settled yet.
Oh, like as not, things will settle themselves. They usually do.
Good night, Mr. Ponset. Night.
By the way, Britt, I'll just leave your star here on the dresser. There's a little rust on the point where the plating's ward off, but good polishing will take care of it.
Well, that was the second night in a row I didn't get much sleep. First thing in the morning, as soon as I figured it was time for the town hall to open, I headed down there and I did a little hunting through the legal code myself. And it was all true what Doc Cross had told me. If I gave up the job of sheriff, Roy Cotton would be next in line for it. So, well, about 9 o'clock, a delegation headed by Doc Cross came in to make the preparations for the swearing-in ceremony. And I told them that the ceremonies just have to be postponed until I had a talk with the Cotton brothers. They were living in the old Peterson place on Flower Street.
You got your nerve coming around here, Ponset. If you figure on making a name for yourself as sheriff by arresting us, you better do some more figuring.
Arresting you? You mean you boys have done something illegal?
No, he never said that.
Well, putting you under arrest was the farthest thing from my mind. Of course, if you think I should.
And just what is it you do want, Ponset?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it's my understanding that Roy here would inherit the sheriff's job if anything happened that I wasn't able to go on.
That's right, Ponset.
And like as not, something will happen, too.
Uh-huh. Well, I was just thinking that under those circumstances, it might be a good idea for Roy to get all the experience he can while I'm around to show him the ropes.
You want me to work with you?
Well, I don't see why not. Come to think of it, I could use you both as deputies.
Deputies?
Yeah, that'll save me getting the whole big posse together. I think the three of us ought to be able to handle the McGinnis gang.
McGinnis?
Tracer McGinnis. You heard about him, haven't you? Oh, that's right. You all used to be sort of friendly, didn't you? Before you had that falling out with him, that is.
Gus?
You don't mean Tracer McGinnis is heading this way?
Oh, it's probably just another false rumor, but there's probably not a word of truth to it.
Yeah, but why'd he be coming in here, Gus? Unless he's after us again.
Yeah.
Well, now, if you fellows would just hold up your hands, I'll give you the oath.
No, wait a minute, Ponset. Maybe it'd be better if you was to take out more of a posse.
Oh, now, Gus. Like as not, Tracer won't be bringing his whole gang. Maybe only 10 or 12 of them. All right, now, boys, you hold up your hands.
No, I ain't going to mix it up with Tracer McGinnis, Ponset. I had enough of him already.
But, Roy...
The kid's right for once.
Well, I'm afraid you fellas don't quite understand. Now, according to the ordinance passed 2 years ago come November, if any man refuses to take part in a duly constituted posse, he forfeits all right to hold office in the town of Virtue City from that time on. That'd mean that you couldn't be sheriff, Roy.
Gus...
I don't figure that's going to make much difference, Ponset. You see, we don't aim to stay around Virtue City anyhow.
Yeah, that's right. We were sort of planning to leave town today, weren't we, Gus?
Yeah, we were just doing our packing when you come in.
Well, maybe we ought not to wait to pack, Gus. Them McGinnis boys ride fast when they're on the move.
They sure do. Come on.
Oh, I wouldn't hurry myself too much, boys. If you ask me, I think you'll have plenty of time to finish packing before they get here. Plenty of time. Well, as things worked out, they needn't have heard it all. As far as I know, Tracer McGinnis never did show up in Virtue City. Of course, Ernie Needle became sheriff that very same day, right after I resigned. And I guess he hasn't had too much trouble keeping folks in line. You see, the Cotton brothers haven't been heard of since they beat it out of town. It just goes to show you, a person really shouldn't believe in rumors. It's funny the way they get started, isn't it?
The Six-Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burt and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Carlton Young, Dal McKinnon, Paul Richards, Frank Gerstle, and Junius Matthews. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. This is John Wall speaking. Tonight, hear an address by President Eisenhower on the NBC Radio Network. In just a moment, you'll hear James Stewart as the Six-Shooter. There's music for you tomorrow evening with two of your favorite song stylists. First, it's the Dinah Shore Show, and then Songs with Sinatra. There's laughter, too, in your Friday lineup with three comedy favorites. The Bob Hope Show with Bob's guest Jerry Colonna, the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show, and Can You Top This? It's a great Friday night program lineup, all of them heard only on NBC. James Stewart as the Six-Shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl. Its handle unmarked. People call them both the Six-Shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the Six-Shooter. a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still remembered legends.
It was about 7 o'clock on a Saturday evening, and I was riding down the east trail that led from Castle City over to Crown Ranch. Been a real warm day. A little breeze was coming up now, and things were cooling off to a nice, comfortable twilight. I hadn't seen any signs of habitation for the last few miles. The soil was pretty thin and sandy. Probably wouldn't grow much. But a little further on, the ground turned brown, rich-looking. I noticed a frame house sitting back, 50 yards back from the trail. When I was almost even with the house, the front door opened and somebody came running out toward me.
Hey, mister, would you hold up a minute, mister?
Young boy, it looked like, about 15, 16, wearing blue jeans and a checkered shirt and a little peaked cap pulled down over his ears. Whoa, Scar. Whoa, boy. Whoa, boy. Howdy, son. What can I do for you?
You come from town, mister?
That's right.
You didn't run across Friendly DeWitt on the trail, did you?
Friendly DeWitt?
You know him, don't you, mister? He runs the traveling mercantile.
How's that?
Oh, sure. We're too far out to get into town very much, so he brings around a wagon load of goods every once in a while. I just don't know what we'd do without him.
Well, don't stand out there all night jawing. Just find out about Friendly, like I told you.
The gentleman ain't seen him, ma'am.
Oh, shut up, Fern. You can wear something else if you have to. Oh. The supper dishes are waiting, Cindy Lou.
What was that she called you?
Cindy Lou?
But that's a girl's name. Oh, in this light here, and the way you were dressed, I sort of thought maybe you were...
It don't matter. Thanks again, mister. So long.
So long. Cindy Lou. Well, I gave Scar a little touch of my heel. Let's go. Come on. Come on, boy. We started off. I figured I'd had about 8 miles to go before I'd reach the Crown Ranch. I hadn't been through this part of the country in quite a spell. But I was pretty certain Floyd Prince would remember me from the old days. He'd sign me on for the summer if he had an opening. Come on, Scar. Come on. It was about 15 minutes later, and I came to the fork in the trail. I saw a wagon rolling along from the south. It was some wagon, too. Almost twice the size of anything I'd ever run into before. And the way the canvas bulged out, it looked like it was loaded to the brim. Well, it stood to reason that this was the traveling mercantile that Cindy Lou had mentioned. Whoa, Scar. Whoa.
Whoa, Peggy. Easy now. Easy there. Howdy, friend.
Good evening. You're, Mr. DeWitt, I take it.
You take it right, sir, except for that Mr. part. Just call me Friendly, like the rest of the folks. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Something you needin', mister?
No.
Shoelaces, chewing tobacco, flour, salt, kitchen utensils, ammunition, yardage, sewing equipment, anything at all. Just you name it, I got it, here in my wagon.
It sounds like quite an assortment there.
Oh, that's only a part of it. I didn't even touch on my medical supplies.
Oh.
Old Doc Barstow's painkiller, Seth's simple all-purpose salve, Miss Jenny's bunion plasters and corn removers. You got any corns that's troubling you, mister? They're just a thing.
No, I don't do too much walking.
Oh. Some liniment, then?
No, thanks just the same. I'm in pretty good health.
Well, what about wearing apparel? I got a full line of Levi's shirts, bandanas, cotton and wool socks.
No, I'm just not in the market for anything friendly. The only reason I stopped was to tell you that those folks down the trail were getting kind of anxious about you.
Folks down the trail?
Uh-huh. You know, the farmhouse a couple miles back there.
Well, I just can't imagine who you're talking about, mister. I ain't even headed that way. I'm making a delivery over the Davis Ranch near Evergreen. The Davis girl's getting married tomorrow morning. I'm bringing all the paraphernalia for the wedding. You sure somebody in this neighborhood's looking for me?
They seem to be. I don't know the family's name exactly. The girl I bumped into is called Cindy Lou.
Well, that must be Cindy Lou Ames. But why would... Great yellow pumpkins. Hattie Ames. That dress she ordered for her daughter Fern. What time you make it out to be, mister? I ain't unpacked my shipment of alarm clocks yet.
Oh, it must be 7:30.
Well, maybe I can get there before they leave. If I don't, Hattie Ames will skin me alive. Giddy up, Teddy. Come on now. Come on, Francis. Come on. I knew there was something else. And I was working on that dress only this morning, too. Shortening the hem. So long, mister. Hope you enjoy the square dance.
Dance? What do you... Come on, Scar. Come on. Dance? What are you talking about?
Well, that's where you're heading, ain't it? The Crown Ranch?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. But I didn't know about any dance or anything. I was going to ask Floyd Prince for a job.
You mean tell me you ain't heard about the celebration tonight?
No, not a word.
Well, it's account of Floyd Prince's son. He just come home from schooling back east.
Well, you mean Monty Prince?
Yeah, that's the boy's name. You know him, mister?
Oh, I used to. He was just a little shaver then. He's all grown up, huh?
Well, he must be 20 or so, somewhere along in there. I guess he'll be taking over the crown one of these days.
I see. Well, I reckon better put off my job hunting until some other time. I wouldn't want to bother Floyd and give him a party. I'll ride along with you for a spell, friendly.
Well, if you're an acquaintance of Floyd Prince's, I imagine you'll be more than welcome at his party. Practically everybody in the neighborhood's been invited.
Maybe so. But fact is, I'm not too good at square dancing. I don't know, but there's just something about my legs. A little too much of them, I reckon.
Well, I just hope you're the only absentee.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, Hattie's daughter Fern, she was planning to wear this here dress her ma ordered from me.
Oh.
Yeah, like as not, she's having a tantrum right now. She sure takes after Hattie.
She does, huh?
Yes, sir. And mind not delivering her outfit on time, well, there'll be real catastrophe. You see, Hattie's aiming to marry her Fern off to this young Monty Prince. And she'll probably manage it, too. Hattie usually gets her own way. Uh-oh. Look over there, mister. Buggy coming up the trail. That'll be Hattie and Fern on the way to the crown.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Well, it's too late to do anything about the dress now if they're started off. Yeah, the best thing for me to do is to stay out of sight. I'll get my wagon over here under these trees here. Well, easy, Francis, easy now.
But what do you... They're bound to see you sitting there.
Oh, you don't know Hattie Ames like I do.
What do you mean?
Why, she's as nearsighted as a buffalo. Can't see her hand in front of her face unless she's wearing her bifocals.
Oh.
And she won't be wearing them either. Not if she's heading for a shindig.
Well, what about the daughter?
Well, I told you, Fern takes after her mother. She's as blind as a bat without her spectacles.
I see.
Here they come. There. What did they tell you?
Oh, doggone. They never even glanced over toward us, did they?
No, not a glance. Well, I guess I might as well mosey over to the Davis Ranch. Nice meeting you, Mr.
No, I'm sorry, friendly. I meant to introduce myself. My name's Ponset, Britt Ponset.
Oh, why, Mr. Ponset, I didn't recognize you.
Oh, no reason why you should, friendly. No reason you should.
Well, I heard so much about you. And that gun. Here, Mr. Ponset, here. I got me some samples of a new hair tonic. Smells real elegant, too. Maybe you'd like to try it. They say it'll grow fuzz on... Not that there's anything matter with your hair, you understand?
Well, my supply's kind of decreasing. A little tonic might be very handy.
All right, sir. Just a second now. I got it right back here. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, thanks, friendly.
My pleasure, Mr. Ponset. My pleasure. Well, I...
Say, I just happened to think, what happened to the other daughter? Well, that buggy that just went by, there were only 2 women in it. Now, the girl I met back at the farm, she wasn't
Oh, you mean Cindy Lou? Well, she wouldn't be going to Prince's dance.
She wouldn't have.
No. You see, Hattie ain't got much use for her. Cindy ain't Hattie's real kin. She's just stepdaughter.
Oh.
Yeah, Hattie and Fern, well, they just seem to go out of their way to make things miserable for her. Like this here dance, for instance. Everybody knows that Monty Prince and Cindy Lou used to be real friendly when they was kids. Well, she'd probably give her eye tooth to go to that party tonight, see him again, but, well...
It's too bad she can't.
Yeah, but there's nothing anybody can do about it. Why, she don't even have a dress to her name. You know, I've got a hunch she'd be real pretty if Hattie ever allowed her to fix herself up.
Well, she seemed a mighty nice-looking girl to me.
Yeah, sure is. Yeah.
What's the matter?
Why shouldn't Cindy Lou go to that dance tonight? With all the stuff in this wagon, I could fix her up so she'd be the prettiest girl there.
Oh, maybe you could, friendly. Maybe you could.
It'd sure be a good trick to play on Hattie and Fern. Why, if they couldn't tell my wagon at 50 feet, they'd never know Cindy Lou when I got done with her. Come on, Mr. Ponset.
What?
Well, a girl can't go to square dance all by herself. She's got to have an escort.
Oh, I suppose so, but, now hold on, friendly. What, you don't mean me?
Well, you're a friend of the princess. You said so yourself.
Why, I'm old enough to be her...
If we don't hurry, Mr. Ponset, square dance will be all over. Come on. Step lively there, Francis. Come on there, Peggy. Let's start traveling. Come on, Mr. Ponset.
Don't understand, Mr. DeWitt. You mean you want to loan me a dress?
And all the trimmings, Cindy Lou. Before I get done with you, you'll be so dooted up that your own stepmother won't recognize you.
And you want to take me to the dance, Mr. Ponset?
Yeah, sure. That is, if you want to go. Yeah.
Well, that's right kindly of you both, but the fact is, I don't have no interest in attending the doings at the Crown.
Oh, you don't, huh? Well, in that case...
I don't know where you ever got such a notion, Mr. DeWitt. As if I cared anything about seeing Monty Prince again. Why, I haven't even thought of him since he went away to school. Not once.
Well, I reckon your stepsister Fern's done some thinking about him.
A lot of good it'll do her. Monty wouldn't look to... I mean, it's none of my business, one way or the other.
No, I guess it isn't. Oh, sorry we bothered you. Let's go, friendly.
Okay, Mr. Ponset. Night, Cindy Lou.
Mr. DeWitt.
Was there something you wanted, Cindy?
I guess maybe I'm acting kind of ungrateful. I mean, well, you both did put yourself out for me, and it was real generous of you to do it. I don't suppose it would do me no harm to go to that square dance. For a little while, anyway. If you really want me to.
Well, now, that's more like it. Let's see now. The first thing we got to do is find a dress. You come on out to my wagon, Cindy. We'll pick something that'll make you look like a princess. Yes, sir, a real princess.
Well, I want to tell you, Friendly wasn't very far wrong. That's just exactly how Cindy Lou looked when she came out of that bedroom about half an hour later. And for a minute, we just stood there, just not saying a word, just staring at her.
Is something wrong? Don't I look good enough to go to the dance?
Good enough? Why, Cindy Lou, you're as pretty as a picture. Ain't you, Britt?
Why, she sure is. Well... If you're all ready, Cindy. Well...
there's just one thing. We forgot the shoes.
Shoes?
I don't have any party slippers of my own.
Oh. Well, you see, Cindy Lou, that's about the only item I don't stock in my wagon. I guess you can make do with the shoes you're wearing, can't you?
Oh, I don't see how. I mean, well, look at them yourself.
Yeah. No, wait. I am carrying one pair of fancy slippers. They're part of the Davis girls' wedding outfit.
Well?
No. I couldn't loan them to Cindy, though. I got to leave for the Davis ranch as soon as you two start off for the dance. I promised I'd be there first thing in the morning, and it's a good 8 hours drive in that wagon of mine.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Well, it was real nice of you both, anyhow. I'll never forget what you tried to do for me and how I felt when I put on this dress. And how wonderful.
Now, hold on, Cindy. Hold on.
It's all right.
Just let me do some figuring here. Let's see. If I was to leave here by midnight, I could be at the Davis place along about 8 a.m. That ought to be early enough. Well, there ain't no reason why you both couldn't be back here before 12 o'clock, is there?
No reason at all.
Well, then I guess the next thing to do is to find out whether them slippers will fit or not. I'll bring them right in.
Well, I just don't know what to say, Mr. Ponset. Nothing like this has ever happened to me before. It all seems like something out of a storybook.
You know, Cindy, I was just thinking the same thing.
Well, here you are, Cindy. Try them on.
Gee, they sure do look small, don't they?
Yeah? You think you can make it?
I don't... Oh, there. Oh, it is kind of tight, but...
Well, try the other one. If you can get one on, the other ought to go, too.
There.
Good. Now, you going to be able to walk all right?
Oh, I'll be able to walk all right, Mr. Dewitt. The way I feel I could almost fly.
Well, then you better get started. You won't have too long to the dance, you know. And don't forget, Britt, you got to have her back here by midnight.
Don't worry, friendly. I won't forget.
You are listening to James Stewart as the six-shooter. The story of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman whose name has become legend throughout the great Southwest. Now, Act 2 of the story called When the Shoe Doesn't Fit.
I hoisted Cindy Lou up on Scar, and she managed to seat herself in front of the saddle. I kind of held on to her to keep her from falling off, and we started off for the Crown Ranch. It took us about 45 minutes to get there, and that party was in full swing when we walked into the parlor.
Rope your cow and brand your calf. Bring your honey an hour and a half.
Floyd Prince came over to the door when he saw us and told me we're more than welcome. He's real nice, considering I'd invited myself. I sort of managed to avoid mentioning Cindy Lou's name, and what with all the hubdub, Floyd didn't seem to notice that I hadn't introduced her properly. But Floyd's son, Monty, well, he didn't wait for any introduction. He just took one look at Cindy, and that was the last I saw of her. As far as I could tell, the other girls at the party were just completely out of the picture from then on. I waited until there was an intermission and the dancing, and I moseyed over to the punch bowl.
Oh, can I help you, Mr. Ponset?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm Mrs. Ames, Hattie Ames.
Oh, how do, Miss Ames?
Oh, Fern, over here, dear. I want you to meet somebody. This is my daughter, Fern, Mr. Ponset.
I'm pleased to meet you, Fern.
Well, speak up. Fern's sort of shy.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, that young lady that you brought to the party, she doesn't seem to be spending much time with you, does she? Oh, that's the trouble when a man brings a pretty girl to a dance. He's apt to find himself all alone. Fern, stop your fidgeting. Of course, now, some girls have character as well as looks. All right, I say.
Now, grab your partners for the next dance. And everybody join in.
Oh, my goodness. They're starting another dance. Now, Mr. Ponset, don't think that you have to ask my permission to dance with Fern. You just go right ahead.
Yes. Fern? Like I said, I'm not much of a square dancer, but there just didn't seem to be any way of turning Fern down. Well, I guess I should say there wasn't any way of turning her mother down. So, we did our best. Whoop. Sorry, Fern. As the evening wore on, it didn't look like she had any other partner lined up. Well, I figured it was up to me to sort of fill in. Whoop. Oh, I sure didn't mean to kick you, Fern. There's one thing about her, though. She sure didn't talk a man to death. And somehow the time passed, and the next thing I knew, it was after 11 o'clock. Now, that meant Cindy and I had to be starting home, so I looked around for her, but she wasn't in sight. I excused myself from Fern and headed out the front porch. Yeah, Cindy was there all right, but the thing that surprised me was she was all alone. Looked like she'd been crying. Cindy.
Oh, Mr. Ponset.
What, are you all right?
Oh, I'm fine, just fine.
Where's Marty?
I don't know.
Well, maybe you'd better find him and say goodnight.
I never want to see him again. Not as long as I live.
Oh. Well, what happened? I thought you two were hitting off real good.
I thought so, too, at first. While we were inside dancing, everything was just wonderful. And then, all of a sudden, he started acting like he didn't care about me at all. Said he couldn't be spending all his time with one girl. He had to dance with some of the others.
Mm-hmm. Well, after all, the party is in his honor.
And that ain't all, Mr. Ponset. He didn't even know who I was.
Well, didn't you tell him?
Well, I thought sure he'd know. I never figured he'd forget me, not in just a few years.
Well, you've changed, Cindy, and the way you're all fixed up tonight.
Oh, that wouldn't matter. Not if Monty really liked me. I'd never forget him. I'd know him no matter how much he changed or how he dressed.
Well, all you had to do was just tell him who you were, you know.
No, I just couldn't. And you mustn't tell him either. You've got to promise me you won't. Now, please, Mr. Ponset.
Mm-hmm. Well, if that's what you want. Well, I think maybe we'd better leave.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready.
You got everything?
I guess so. Why?
I don't know. I just thought maybe you'd lost one of your slippers or...
My slippers? Whatever gave you that idea?
I don't know. I just sort of crossed my mind somehow. Never mind. I'll get Scott. Well, it just goes to show you that stories in real life don't work out the same way. Instead of falling in love, Cindy and Monty Prince were just far away as ever, and even farther. And there didn't seem to be any way of getting them together either. Leastways, he wasn't going to be able to do it by finding one of her slippers at the dance, that's for sure. As a matter of fact, she couldn't have lost a shoe at the dance if she'd wanted to. When we got her home, we found out she couldn't even get them off.
Doggone it, Cindy, you must not be trying. Well, you didn't have this much trouble getting them on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. DeWitt. I'm doing my best. My feet must have swelled up from the dancing or something. The slippers...
Here, let me do it.
Oh, sure.
Why, they're just plain stuck fast.
I know. Maybe in the morning my feet will go back to normal. And then you...
Hey, look out the window there, friendly. Isn't that a buggy out there?
Holy smoke. Fern and Hattie. So long, Cindy. Bye, Britt.
Oh, wait a minute, friendly. I don't want them catching me here either.
But what about the slippers in the wedding tomorrow?
The bride's wearing a long dress, reaches clear down to the floor. She can get married in the bare feet if she has to.
Well, thanks for everything.
Good night, Cindy. I'm sorry things didn't work out better for you, but good night. Well, along about noontime the next day, I was in my hotel room washing up for Sunday dinner. They were planning to serve fried chicken and corn fritters and apple pie. The Castle Hotel always put the food on family style, so I figured I'd better be real prompt or there wouldn't be any... Yeah? Yeah, come in. Oh, Monty. Oh, what are you doing in town?
I came to see you, Mr. Ponset.
Oh, is that so?
It's about that girl you brought out to the Crown last night.
Well, I sort of had the impression you weren't too interested in her.
Oh, I'm interested, all right. I wish I wasn't, but I am.
How's that?
Well, you see, Mr. Ponset, before I went back east, I was, I was real fond of another girl. Cindy Lou Ames, her name is.
Oh.
And we sort of promised that we'd wait for each other. But last night, that girl with you, well, she sort of made me forget Cindy.
She did, huh?
For a while, anyway. And then I remembered, and I felt real bad because it didn't seem like I was being fair to Cindy. So I went inside and I left the other girl to herself. But doggone it, all night long I kept thinking about both girls, and they sort of got mixed up in my mind. I couldn't even keep them straight.
Uh-huh. You've got quite a problem there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Good morning, Mr. Ponset. I finally managed to get... Oh.
Cindy Lou.
Hello, Monty.
Golly, it's good to see you. I was hoping you'd be at the dance last night.
Were you?
You know, you haven't changed a bit.
No, I guess I haven't. They're in this paper bag, Mr. Ponset. Those things I borrowed last night.
Oh.
I thought maybe you could return them to Mr. DeWitt for me.
Well, I'm not sure I'll be running into him again, Cindy.
Here, Mr. Ponset. Now be careful. Don't drop. Oh, Mr. Ponset.
Oh, doggone it, Cindy. I just sort of slipped out of my fingers. Well, here, I'll put these party shoes back in the sack. There.
Well, goodbye, and thanks. Goodbye, Monty.
Cindy, wait a minute. Where'd you get those shoes?
I don't know what you mean.
Why, they're the same ones they're exactly the same. Cindy, Lou, you were at the square dance last night. You and that other girl... Why, there wasn't any other girl. It was you. No wonder I couldn't get you straightened out in my...
What are you talking about?
Tell her, Mr. Ponset, what I told you just before she came in.
Well, I think maybe you better tell her yourself, Monty. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of anxious to get downstairs while there's still some fried chicken left, so...
Now, you listen to me,
really
Cindy. I've been in love with you ever since I can remember.
I don't believe it.
Well, it's true. And it doesn't matter what kind of a dress you wear or how your hair is fixed or...
Well, there wasn't much point in my hanging around to see if Cindy and Monty would finally get together. There's only one way a story like this can end. I guess you know as well as I do. They were just bound to live happily ever after.
The Six Shooter is a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burt and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Barbara Eiler as Cindy Lou, and Eleanor Audley, Sandra Gould, Bill Johnstone, and Sam Edwards. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. This is John Wald speaking. Hear MacDonald Carey in Jason and the Golden Fleece tonight on the NBC Radio Network. In just a moment, you'll hear James Stewart as the Six Shooter. There's music for you tomorrow with two of your favorite song stylists, Dinah Shore and Frank Sinatra. And tomorrow you'll also hear a special RCA 35th anniversary program starring another of your vocal favorites, Perry Como. Friday also means comedy on NBC, and the laugh merchants include Fibber, McGee, and Molly, and the experts on Can You Top This? It's a big Friday evening on NBC. James Stewart as the Six Shooter. The man in the saddle is angular and long-legged. His skin is sun-dyed brown. The gun in his holster is gray steel and rainbow mother of pearl, its handle unmarked. People call them both the Six Shooter. The NBC Radio Network presents James Stewart as the Six Shooter, a transcribed series of radio dramas based on the life of Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman who wandered through the Western Territories, leaving behind a trail of still remembered legends.
Lamb, Trot. Oh. Where are you, Lamb?
Well, Mr. Ponset,
This stall here, Britt. I'm currying down one of my mares. Thought you said you was going to sleep late this morning.
Oh, I just can't seem to get used to a hotel bed. The way you sink down in them, you feel like you're lying in a pile of quicksand. Well, where's Scar?
Huh?
Scar? Why, my horse. I thought maybe I'd take a ride out towards Saucer Mountain. Which stall's in, huh?
Well, now, Britt, I don't want you to fly off the handle.
What? What are you talking about?
Well, the fact is, Scar ain't in no stall at the moment.
Well, what's happened to him?
Now, Britt, you know I wouldn't let anything happen to a horse that was left in my livery stable. You know that, don't you?
Lamb, where's Scar? Just tell me where he is.
Well, he's out.
Out?
You remember Jess Alden, who runs the Willow Fork Gazette?
Sure.
Well, sir, Jess and his wife Zoe has got a young lady visiting him. Myra Barker, her name is. She's Zoe's niece.
Well, what in the thunder's all this got to do with my horse?
No, there's no need to get your head up, Britt. I'm explaining to you about Scar.
Well, you're telling me about some woman named Myra Barker.
Well, that's where Scar is at. Myra took him out for a little canter.
What?
Well, now, you see, she's from back east somewhere, and she ain't got no horse of her own, so every once in a while she rents one of mine.
Well, all right, go on, Lamb.
Well, she come into the stable this morning about an hour ago, just when I was opening up, and she said she felt like taking a little gallop to work up an appetite for breakfast, and so she is a first-class rider, Britt.
I don't care if she... What's got into you, Lamb? The idea of letting some woman ride out of here with Scar. Well, I never heard such a thing in my life.
Now, I tried to argue with her, but Miss Barker is a real forceful young lady. She said she was sure you wouldn't mind since she was only going a short ways, and she told me I was to give you the rental fee, and here it is, Britt, 25 cents.
I don't want any money, Lamb. I want my horse.
Well, they ought to be back, but now Miss Barker usually never stays out more than 30 minutes. Yeah, but now, Britt, don't start fretting about Scar. She'll bring him in all right.
I'm not worried about him. He'll come in of his own accord.
Of his own accord? What are you talking about?
I've had that horse since he was a colt. I broke him myself.
Sure, Britt, sure.
Why, he won't let anybody else ride him but me. Well, the last time anybody tried to mount that horse, he spooked and he threw the fellow a good 20 feet right straight up in the air.
Oh, you don't say. Well, I noticed he acted kind of skittish when she started getting on, but I figured that was because he wasn't used to being rode with a side saddle.
Oh, of course he's He's... Side saddle? You mean she's riding Scar side saddle?
Well, she's a real lady, Britt.
Yeah, she a lady. She won't be much of a lady lying out in a bed of cactus somewheres. Come on, we'd better start looking.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I'll take that gelding, and you can take my... Britt, looky there. It's through the door. See her coming down the street?
Well, I'll be darned.
Say, I never knew Scar was a trick horse.
Neither did I.
Well, then where'd he learn that fancy step she's got him doing?
Got me, Lamb.
Oh, you had me all worried, saying he wouldn't let nobody else ride him. I ought to know better than to take you serious, Britt.
Whoa, now.
Here, Miss Barker, let me give you a hand.
Oh, thank you, William.
I do declare he acts like he don't want you to get off.
Oh, I guess he's going to miss me, aren't you, boy? Oh, that's a nice boy. He certainly is a fine animal, Lim. The man who owns him surely must be proud.
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Oh?
Miss Barker, this is Mr. Ponset. Remember I told you Scar belongs to him?
Oh, yes, of course. How are you, Mr. Ponset?
Well, I'm pleased to meet you, ma'am.
I hope you don't mind my borrowing Scar. Mr. Truitt didn't want me to take him, but I just couldn't resist the way he looked at me. It was almost like he was asking me to go for a trot.
Well, yes, ma'am.
You take good care of him, Mr. Ponset. You wouldn't want anything to happen to a wonderful animal like that.
Oh, no, I sure wouldn't. Miss Barker.
Yes?
If you'd like to ride him again sometime, why, I'll be staying in Willow Fork for a few days.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Mr. Ponset.
Lamb here, he'll fix you up when I'm not using Scar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Well, I just don't understand you, Britt Ponset. Here you was raising Cain because I let her borrow Scar, and now you're volunteering to let her ride him anytime she pleases. I just don't understand it.
Well, I thought, seeing as how Scar kind of took a fancy to her, and what I mean is he's a pretty good judge of human nature, and she does seem to be a first-rate rider. I mean, you know something, Lem? I don't understand it either. Was a nice-looking young lady. There wasn't any doubt about that. And I liked the way she spoke right out. She didn't beat around the bush like a lot of girls a man runs into. There was something about her eyes that... Well, anyway, I put my saddle on Scar, and we headed out towards Saucer Mountain. A couple of miles east of town, we came into a little hollow where nobody would have to see us. Whoa, boy, whoa. Whoa, now slow down. Slow down. I thought maybe I'd get Scar to do that fancy sidestep he was doing with Miss Barker. All right, now, boy, now. No, come on now. No. Now that isn't good. Come on now. Oh, now, Scar, come on now. You were willing to do it for her. Now, come on. Quit that. Well, he just wouldn't do a thing. Acted like he thought I was taking leave of my senses. Oh, quit. I just went back up on the trail, let him travel in the style he was accustomed to. Oh. Must have been about noon the time we got back to town, and I pulled up in front of the cafe. Whoa, boy. Whoa, Scar. Whoa. Doggone you.
Oh, Mr. Ponset.
Oh, Miss Barker.
I was hoping I'd run into you again.
You were... Oh, you want to borrow Scar?
Well, it's about Scar. But I won't be borrowing him anymore.
Oh?
You see, I found out I was wrong to take him this morning. Uncle Jeff told me that in West, a man's horse is something he doesn't loan as a rule. I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to be so inconsiderate.
Oh, you weren't being inconsiderate, Miss Barker. Back east, they probably have different customs, that's all.
Then I'm forgiven?
Oh, sure, ma'am.
You're very generous, Mr. Ponset. Maybe you'll have dinner with us some evening.
Well,
So that I can prove to Uncle Jeff that I haven't completely disgraced the family name. And Zoe's a very good cook.
Yes, I've always heard about Miss Alden. I never had the opportunity to sample her food, though.
Any evening at all. I'm sure you'd be most welcome.
Well, since I don't know just how long I'm going to be stopping here in town, maybe I oughtn't to put it off too long. I'm going to be free tonight. I want to tell you, Miss Alden, I've been hearing folks brag about your cooking ever since I can remember, but they haven't done you justice. Well, they just didn't even come close.
Oh, Brett. Well, here, have another piece of shortcake.
Oh, no, thanks. I just couldn't eat another mouthful.
You sure?
Oh, no, absolutely positive. Thanks just the same, though.
Well, now, if you're certain.
And I'll have another slice, eh?
Now, Jesse, you've had more than your share. Besides, if you have another piece, there won't be enough for tomorrow. Shortcake ought to do for 2 meals.
Well, you just offered Britt.
That's different. He's company. Come on, Jesse. Help me with the dishes.
Huh? The dishes? But I thought Myra usually...
Myra has a guest. They might like to be alone for a few minutes. Now, come on, Jeff.
Oh, sure, Zoe, sure.
We put the porch swing up this morning, Britt. It's a speck early for it, I know, but there sure is a feeling of summer in the air.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Would you, care to go out on the porch, Miss Barker?
We don't have to unless you really want to. I mean, just because Aunt Zoe suggested it.
No. I think I might enjoy it.
All right, then. I'm afraid she isn't very subtle, is she?
How's that?
You know perfectly well Aunt Zoe was throwing me at you. I knew she would when I invited you.
Oh?
The fact is, I'm sort of a disappointment to Aunt Zoe. She's done everything in her power to marry me off. But so far, she hasn't had any luck. Oh, the young men she's introduced me to are all very nice and pleasant. But, well, the truth is I don't want to get married.
Oh, I see.
I'm not the least bit interested in settling down and cooking meals. I like a change of scenery. I like to meet new people.
Uh-huh.
From what Uncle Jess tells me about you, you feel the same way.
Yeah, more or less, I reckon.
So I thought that having you to dinner, well, it would please Aunt Zoe, and as far as we were concerned, we might get to be friends, but there'd be no danger of going beyond that point.
Uh-huh.
Well, now that that's all settled, shall we go inside?
Oh, well, there's no hurry, is there? I mean, as long as there's no danger. Since we have this understanding, it is a nice evening, isn't it?
Whatever you say.
You know, Miss Barker, I was just thinking, every once in a while, somebody tries to get me married off, too. Friends of mine. Their intentions are good, but, well...
Oh, I know how it is.
What I was getting at is this. I haven't any idea how long I'll be here in Willow Fork, and, as long as I'm here, I was wondering if we couldn't see each other once in a while. That might take some of this marriage pressure off both of us. You see what I mean?
Well, I suppose so, but...
And we wouldn't be running any risk, seeing as how we have the understanding, you know. And your aunt would be pleased, my friends would be pleased, and... Well, you know, you're awful good company, Miss Barker.
Why, thank you.
Well, how about it?
Well, all in all, I think it's a very practical idea, Mr. Ponset. I'd be delighted to see you again.
Good. That's fine. Well, now, I'll get in touch with you the next time there's a doings. It probably won't be right away, but I'll get in touch with you.
You are listening to the last program in our series called The Six-Shooter, starring James Stewart as Britt Ponset, the Texas plainsman whose name is legend in the Western Territories. Now, Act 2 of the story called Myra Barker.
Well, as it turned out, there was a doings the very next night. Box supper over at the church. And since I'd sort of promised Myra that the next time there was anything going on, Well, anyway, we went to supper together, and the time seemed to pass by real pleasant. The next night, she was invited to a party at the Peterson house, and, well, now that I look back on it, there sure was a lot of social activity in Willow Fork during the next couple of weeks. We were going one place or another almost every night, and I was enjoying myself, too. I really was. And I was enjoying being with Myra. I didn't realize how much until that evening when I was walking her home from the hayride.
Well, Britt?
Huh?
You haven't said a word since we left the wagon.
Well, there doesn't seem to be much to talk about.
Oh. Well, here we are. It's pretty late. I won't ask you in.
Sure. Good night.
Britt. What's wrong? You're cross as an old bear.
Well, I just don't see why you had to spend the whole doggone evening with Dave Carstairs.
Oh?
And what were you two giggling all the time about?
I don't know. Dave's very amusing.
Well, I just don't happen to agree with you on that. Anyway, I brought you to the hayride, didn't I? And if he can't find himself a girlfriend, we ought to stay home.
Well, now, just a minute, Britt.
Well?
Aren't you taking a little too much for granted? We have an understanding, remember? We're not interested in each other. Romantically.
How do you know we're not interested? Leastways, how do you know I'm not?
Why, Britt?
Well, I guess this is as good a time to tell you as any other. I don't know how it happened. I never thought it could... I don't see... That is, Myra, will you marry me? I know you don't care for the idea, but I'm probably the last man in the world you'd ever... But even so, I've got to ask you.
You'd better be careful, Britt. I might say yes.
I wish you would, Myra. I'd give anything in the world if you would.
You're serious, aren't you?
I'm just as serious as I can be.
But we both said that we didn't want to settle down. That we weren't interested in love or marriage.
A man can change his mind, can't he? Myra?
I guess if a man can change his mind, a woman can too.
Myra, is that you out there?
Yes, Uncle Jess.
It's time you were coming in, ain't it? It's almost 11 o'clock.
I'll be right along.
Can't you let him alone for a minute, Jess?
I've got to get up in the morning, Zoe, and I need my sleep.
I know I haven't got much to offer you, Myra, but I've saved up a little money, enough to get started. I thought maybe I could buy us a ranch. That is, if you'd like ranch life.
Well, I haven't said I'd marry you, Britt.
But I thought, well, you said you felt the same way I do, didn't you?
I'm in love with you, Britt. I'll admit it.
Well,
But
then...
we're not children. We're used to living our own lives, and we've never put down roots, either one of us.
Well, it's high time we did.
I've got to think it over. Just let me sleep on it. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you then.
Oh, you'll say yes, Myra. You've just got to.
I don't know, Britt. I don't know.
Well, I've put in some long days in my life, but that next one, that was the longest I ever spent. Boy. Every once in a while, I'd start thinking that it just couldn't be. That I hadn't really asked a girl to marry me. But then I'd remember Myra, and it seemed like asking her to be my wife was the most sensible thing I'd ever done. Well, I had an early supper, what I could eat of it. And then I headed over to the Aldens. Myra was sitting on the porch swing. She looked even prettier than she had before. Hello, Myra.
You're early, Britt.
Yeah, I guess I am.
I thought maybe you'd be late, or maybe you wouldn't come at all once you'd had a chance to think things over.
Well, it wasn't me who had the thinking to do. Well, Myra...
I'll marry you, Britt.
Oh.
I couldn't turn you down, even if I thought it was best. Even if I knew it was.
Oh, this is the best.
Is it? Are you sure the day won't come when you're sorry you're tied down, when you're sorry you can't go off on a cattle drive to Kansas, or you can't head over to a new mining camp in Nevada, or you can't just be by yourself when you want to?
No, I've had my share of cattle drives and mining camps, more than my share. And I don't want to be alone anymore, Myra. And besides, settling down will be just as hard for you as it is for me, you know. Your life will be changed, too.
It won't be as hard. A woman has roots even if she doesn't realize it. They're there all the time, waiting to take hold. And when if she has a home and a family, forgetting everything else is easy. She does her traveling and her dreaming and her wanting through her children. No, Britt, it's harder for a man.
But I'll manage
And
it.
the day won't come when you'll want to get in the saddle and ride up as far as the snow in the mountains. The day won't come when somebody will ask you for help, you and your six-shooter, a friend who needs you.
You'll just have to do without.
Well, maybe someone like Sheriff Jennings at Eagle Falls, a friend like him.
What makes you mention Sam Jennings? You don't even know him, do you?
A man came into the Gazette office this morning while I was there. He was from Eagle Falls. He'd said that had some trouble there over a month ago. A shooting.
Well, if it was a month ago...
The sheriff was wounded, and the man who did the shooting has a grudge against you. He was looking for you. That's why he came to Eagle Falls. Prescott, I think that was the name the man mentioned.
Bide Prescott?
Yes, that was it. Does he have a grudge against you, Britt?
He did have.
If the sheriff's wounded and wants you to come over to Eagle Falls to help him...
Does Sheriff Jennings want me?
The man in the office said he did. There's nobody else to go after Prescott, is there?
I don't know.
You'd like to go after him, wouldn't you?
No.
But you feel you should, don't you?
But Prescott isn't here. Eagle Falls is over 100 miles away.
You haven't answered me, Britt. Do you feel you ought to go after him?
Well, if what you say is so, if Sheriff Jennings got wounded on my account, if there's nobody else...
Go ahead, Britt. Go on. To Eagle Falls.
Do you want me to go?
Yes. Yes, I want you to.
But it shouldn't take long. I'll come back.
No.
What?
Don't come back, please.
But I don't understand.
There'll always be a Bide Prescott or a Sheriff Jennings. There'll always be someone or something calling to you, taking you away from me. Oh, you'd turn them down, you'd shut your ears, but you'd still hear it, Britt. And inside you'd feel that it was me that was holding you, and it would be me.
No, Myra, I wouldn't blame you.
I'd blame myself. And I wouldn't like myself very much for doing it to you. Don't you see, Britt, we're lucky this happened tonight, that we found out in time.
No, Myra,
Please, Britt, don't come back. Don't. Please don't.
Britt? Hold up a minute, Britt.
Hmm? Oh, good morning, Jazz. Whoa, Scar. Whoa.
Would you mind stepping into the office a minute? I'd like to talk to you.
Well, I
Don't take long.
All right, Jazz. Easy, boy.
Sit down, Britt.
No, I'm kind of restless today, Jazz. Thanks, anyway.
You sure have a fiddle foot, don't you?
Yeah, guess so.
And you're on your way out of town, huh?
Yeah.
See, what about Myra?
She's a fine girl, Jess. Really a fine girl.
Mm-hmm. Britt, you're leaving on account of Sheriff Jennings over to Eagle Falls sent for you. Ain't that your reason?
You might say so, in a way.
Well, now, I don't want you to think that I meant to eavesdrop last night when you was talking to Myra, but somehow Zoe forgot to shut the parlor window, and we just couldn't help hearing a certain amount of what you said.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah.
Well, it ain't true what Myra told you. Leastways, the part about Sheriff Jennings sending for you, that ain't true. The fellow from Eagle Falls didn't even mention your name. Jennings ain't asked for your help, Britt.
Yeah, I know, Jess.
What? Huh?
Well, you see, I ran into Bide Prescott 3-4 weeks ago, and, there's no reason for anybody to be going after him now.
Well, if you knew that, if you knew you didn't have to leave Willow Fork, why in the name of common sense didn't you say so to Myra?
Well, I figured she had her reasons for making up that story about Sheriff Jennings. I figured she was trying to turn me down without hurting my feelings.
Oh, Britt, she didn't want to turn you down. She was just trying to make sure you wouldn't feel you'd made a mistake if you married her.
No, she couldn't really care for me very much, Jess.
Then why did she spend all night crying her eyes out? And why was Zoe up till all hours commiserating with her?
Well, thanks for telling me that, Jess.
Then you ain't leaving.
Well, I'm leaving. But I'm real proud to know that Myra is somewhat fond of me.
Oh, Britt, if you love her and she loves you...
Oh, it's enough that she cried over me for one night, Jess. You know, I remember when I was a kid... My pa was like me in a lot of ways. Always on the move, always off somewhere, getting a new start, taking a new job, hunting a new frontier. He loved my ma, and she loved him, but she spent a lot of nights crying. A lot of nights. I just wouldn't want that to happen to Myra.
There's no reason it should.
Yeah? Yes, there is. When she was telling me that story about Sheriff Jennings wanting me to come over to Eagle Falls, I looked at myself real hard, and I knew that if it had been true, if Sheriff Jennings really had sent for me, well, it had been pretty hard for me to turn him down. Even for Myra's sake, it had been pretty hard. And someday I reckon I wouldn't be able to turn him down or anybody else like him, and Myra would spend another night crying, you see.
One of these days you'll change, Britt.
Maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Well, can I tell Myra that you might come back to Willow Fork?
No, Jess, I don't think you better. Of course, if I do come back and she's still... Well, maybe we just better wait and see what happens.
So long, Britt. Good luck.
Thanks, Jess. I'll probably be seeing you again before too long. Let's go, Scar.
The last program in the current series of The Six-Shooter, a transcribed NBC Radio Network production in association with Review Productions. It is written by Frank Burt and is based on a character created by him. Mr. Stewart may currently be seen in the Universal International picture The Glenn Miller Story. Others in the cast were Virginia Gregg, who played Myra, D.J. Thompson, Howard McNear, and Parley Bear. Special music for this program was by Basil Adlam, and the entire production is under the direction of Jack Johnstone. All characters and incidents were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual characters or incidents is purely coincidental. It's been good to be with you with the Six-Shooter each week, and I hope that sometime, somehow, we can do it again. This is John Wall speaking. Hear MacDonald Carey and Jason and the Golden Fleece tonight on the NBC Radio Network. 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 NBC Radio